is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 273 of Sports Cards Live. It is Saturday night, June the 28th, 2025. My name is Jeremy Lee. Guys, tomorrow night on the channel, Fanatics Collect weekly auction ending watch party is back covering all sports. And you can now find the audio tracks from Sports Cards Live auction shows on their very own tiny little podcast called Sports Cards Live Auction Nights on Apple and Spotify. Subscribe for free, and I appreciate everyone who did request those. Check out the Road to the National series here on the Sports Cards Live YouTube channel. 6 episodes so far, and a bonus 7th episode will drop next week. And if you are looking to add a Grail to your collection, make sure to check out Fund Your Cards, the hobby's leading consolidator. They will help you finance the purchase with your own cards. Visit fundyourcards.com, and there you will find their proprietary client platform that cements them as the leaders in the space. And Mint Inc. is the leading hobby experience in Canada. Check out their physical Vaughan location in Toronto, or if you're not in their neck of the woods, visit their website, mintinc.ca, for online shopping with worldwide shipping. They do live stream shopping, auctions, breaks, grading, and more. Mintinc.ca. And check out GP Sports Cards for a wide variety of hockey breaks located right here on YouTube, streaming Wednesdays and Fridays. All new products and breaks can be found on their website, gpsportscards.com. And if you are looking for a gem mint in sports stats, Rolling Insights delivers high-quality data for businesses who trust their data feeds to power their platforms with real-time statistics, box scores, player and team performance data. Fantasy players rely on SportsWise for instant access to performance data. Ditch those messy spreadsheets. Turn raw stats into a real advantage. Visit rolling-insights.com today. And guys, Chronosio, I got the shirt on again. New flexible pricing from Chronosio to match your needs. They've heard your feedback loud and clear. You want to only pay for what you truly need, and that's why they've implemented a new pricing slider offering more granular control over your subscription. If previously available options didn't match your requirements, now is the perfect time to revisit. Plus, choose their new annual plan and get 2 months free. When you pay for 10, you get 12. Elevate your collection and inventory management. Get started at home.chronosio.com. And guys, this show is available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please follow and subscribe for free. Leave a rating or review. And thank you all for your loyal viewership and loyalty. Very much appreciate it. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, take a moment and do so. And as always, your comments and your questions are in play. So let's get to it. Before we bring on our special guest tonight, by the way, Joe Burrows is taking the night off. He's got other plans. He'll be back next week, but we have Josh Adams filling in for him. He'll be coming on hour 2 at the beginning of hour 2. The first hour is going to be myself and Arena Club founder Brian Lee. Before we bring Brian on, I want to say hello to the chat. Laura, what is going on? Good evening to you. Stooks is here. What's up, Stooks? Pick 6 cards. Jacob Dahl is here. Hanif, welcome to the show. We've got Mike Petty with us. Theo is coming on in a little bit. Linda's first. It is good to see you as well. Orlando from A Collector's Dream. Daniel Brown, welcome to the show. Sundin 564 is here. Mike Petty, we got a few guests tonight. Don't you worry. Todd McDonald, good evening to you. Steve Clifton, welcome to the show. Called Shot Cards, hello to you as well. Midlife's Jeremy and Theo on one screen. Good time. Yeah, and by the way, guys, Joe Burrows made an appearance on Midlife Cards on Friday with Greg and Dylan Double D. Check that out on the Midlife Sports Card YouTube channel. Skeppy is here with us. Yankees fan is here with us. Welcome to the show. There's Theo. He's coming up onto the screen a little bit later tonight. Lonely Basement Baseball Cards is with us. Welcome to the show, everybody. And let's get on with it. Let's bring out Brian. Are you ready to come on the show? He is ready. Let's welcome Brian Lee, founder of Arena Club. Brian, welcome to Sports Cards Live. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. How are you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing good, Brian. I'm doing good.
Awesome.
So you and I, we've known each other. I think it was, let's see, it's 2025, just shy of like 3 years ago. Yeah. I believe it was maybe August, September 2022. we had dinner together, a nice sushi restaurant in Los Angeles. Had a very nice, excuse me, very nice dinner. So we've known each other for quite some time, and it's good to have you on for the first time. So I'm happy to have you. How are things going on in your world?
Things are going great. Thanks for asking. And I do remember that sushi dinner. It was a great sushi dinner. Hopefully we could do that again next time you're in LA. But I'm doing great, having a lot of fun building an arena club.
That's great. So before we talk about what you've built with Arena Club, why don't you let us understand a little bit about the origin of Arena Club? What really was the catalyst for you to want to create Arena Club, and what was maybe the original form of it? Because I know it has gone through some changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a collector, much like most of your listeners and yourself, for my whole life, really. Started collecting cards when I was a kid, and I was always that kid that never stopped. I bought my first card, I remember, when I was 8 years old, and I rode my bike to Fountain Valley Cards and Comics and bought my first Steve Garvey card. It was a 1971 Topps card, and I still have it today. And so I just that started my journey. I kept going, but all throughout my years of collecting, I always had some issues with the hobby, right? So with the industry, and most of those issues related to more about transparency and the use of the non-use of technology, really, to improve the industry. And so my background is, as you probably know, Jeremy, I'm an entrepreneur. I've started some companies in the past. I'm the founder of LegalZoom.com and The Honest Company and so forth. And so, I've always looked towards technology to improve, certain categories. And so when I looked at this industry, the industry that I love so much, I always had some issues, and those issues related to more on the grading side and the marketplace side. And so on the grading side, I would send in cards to get graded from every grading company. And I would get cards back, and look, I know what a perfect Gem Mint 10 should be, right? And sometimes I'd send in these cards and get them back, and they'd be an 8 or a 9. And I was always wondering, like, why? Like, I just wish someone would tell me. And so I always thought, okay, that could be improved with technology. And so we kind of used a little bit of AI mixed with human grading to kind of improve, I thought, the grading component, where we would provide transparent kind of grading reports to show you exactly what's wrong with your card and why it scored a certain way. So that was kind of step one of Arena Club. And the second part was marketplace. So all throughout my years of collecting, I purchased a lot of cards on marketplaces, and same thing. I had issues, right? Trim cards, fake cards, frosted cards, non-shipment, non-payment, all these issues that we all deal with when it comes to marketplaces. And so I thought I could do that better as well. And the idea was to use blockchain technology. So take a card, scan it, vault it. The scanned version would go onto blockchain, so on Polygon. That's how we record everything at Arena Club. And then you could buy, sell, and trade with other showrooms very quickly without ever having to wait for delivery or mail, without ever, worry. You don't have to worry about the authenticity of the card, because everything in our marketplace is graded by either PSA, SGC, or Arena Club or other grading companies. And so we thought, okay, this is a more streamlined marketplace. So that was kind of the start of Arena Club. That's how we launched it about 2.5 to 3 years ago now.
I mean, those are two monstrous initiatives, right? Grading and marketplace. While there are obviously big incumbents, grading, of course, we have PSA, we have Beckett, marketplace, eBay is huge, but you're a seasoned entrepreneur. Do you find, or did you think that, you would be able to make inroads? And listen, at the beginning in the middle of 2022, I was working with Tag Grading, another, sort of grading company that is trying to bring technology into the grading process and automation and objectivity. And I mean, these are large undertakings. So, what was your confidence level? What was your drive? Where did you think this would all end up going?
I really think that it's going to take a lot of time, really, to have people accept something that's outside of what I consider the monopolies, right? So, I mean, let's be honest. PSA is a wonderful company, right? They really are, and it's like they are the gold standard when it comes to grading, which is why everyone comps to PSA. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, right? But would I love for them to provide transparent grading reports? Absolutely, I would love that. So what I would love to see is some other grading companies like Arena Club, like Tag, some others kind of push the hobby forward with technology. And maybe some of these other grading companies will adapt and make their product even better. Right, so that's what we're hoping for. Now, in terms of Arena Club, I thought that we could launch and that we would take some share of some of the grading. We could take some share of marketplace and kind of grow a nice business. And we were growing, but it was slower. And so we decided we had to do something in terms of, kind of jump starting the engine here. And so I was walking through the National a couple years back. This is in Chicago. I guess this would have been 2022 or so. And I saw these vendors selling these repack products in front of their tables, right? All these grab bags, and we've all seen it, right? And I was talking to this one repacker, and he had all these bags, and one of the signs said Shohei Ohtani rookie card in one of the bags. And he's selling these bags for $50 a pop. And I remember asking him, I said, which Shohei is it? Like, which Shohei did you put in here? And his honest answer to me was, I don't remember. For real, right? I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, so what else did you put in here? He's like, you're just going to have to find out. And he was clearly annoyed with me. And as I'm talking to him, this other gentleman walks up and buys 2 bags. So it's like, you have no idea what you're even trying to buy. Like, what are you even chasing? Right? So that's kind of like, when I had a slight aha moment, I would say. And I thought, okay, what if we brought technology and transparency to this repack hobby, or the repack part of the hobby? And so we thought, okay, well, if we provided transparency in terms of checklists, like live checklists, we could provide odds on the chances that you're going to hit something. You see the cards being hit, you see them going into people's showrooms. So as transparent as we possibly could be using technology. So we decided to launch that. And so we launched that in November of 2023 is when we launched our slab pack product. And that has kind of jump-started Arena Club, probably, as you know. But the interesting thing is that the increase of the slab pack business has really increased our grading as well as our marketplace products as well. And so now it's becoming a true platform for the collector.
How is the grading going? I mean, I know my involvement with Tag. I kind of have a little bit of insight. I sit in on the investor calls. I don't work with Tag at all during my regular work hours. I'm simply a silent investor at this point. But I know that it's hard to gain traction. Even though it might be a superior product, it might be more objective, it might be way more transparent. And I know that Arena Club is similar to Tag in terms of using some form of computerized grading, whether it's AI or whatever we're calling it. I know that there is a grading report, and I think that's great. I've always felt the same way as you, Brian. You get a grade back from PSA or Beckett, and even Beckett with the subgrades, you really don't know why the subgrades got the grades that they did. With PSA, you have really no idea why your card got the grade it did. And then oftentimes, and we know that you can keep on submitting cards back and get different grades. So it can be very inconsistent, a good chunk of the time. So despite all the benefits of it, it's hard to gain traction and to win over the hobby. The hobby is very apprehensive to the change, to the technical change. Mm-hmm. So yeah, what have you been finding? Have you gone through cycles of grading volume? Are you seeing more and more Arena Club slabs on the secondary market? How is the ramp up really gone?
Yeah, I think the ramp up's going very well. Very well. At this point, I think we're probably the 4th or 5th largest grading company now, comparing ourselves to the numbers that are public. So we are definitely increasing our grading activity. Now, how long will it take for our slabs to be truly accepted into the hobby? It's going to take some time. It really will. But we just started our first kind of broader advertising. Jeremy, I'm not sure if you caught that or not. Back a couple of weeks ago, we started with our first television ad with Derek Jeter. and that's going now. It'll start airing on Fox Sports and so forth. And we do want to start building Arena Club into more of a brand in the hobby, because that's another thing that I noticed too, is that the hobby, this is coming from someone who wasn't in the hobby 3 years ago and now is. And what I noticed is when I told my wife, I said, there's a lot of very large businesses in the card industry. She's like, oh, like who? So I named some. I'm like, oh, well, there's PWCC, there's PSA, there's this company and Beckett, and this. I was naming all these companies, and she's never heard of any of them, right? And I said, that's so interesting, right? And if you talk to anyone not in the hobby, right, not collecting right now, they've never heard of any of these, right? We're very isolated. We're insular, right? And I'm looking at this, I'm like, the whole world should know how cool and fun and exciting card collecting is, right? And how passionate people are about this. And so I kind of took it upon myself to say, you know what, we're going to do a great brand commercial and air it, and we're going to push it out. We're going to push this message out. We're going to bring more people into the hobby, and more people will hear about Arena Club as the entry point into the hobby. So that's how we're looking at, growing our grading business and our marketplace for that matter, is by getting our brand out there ahead of, as far out there into the public eye as possible.
Yeah. And so a couple things on that. First of all, it seems like when I'm talking to people that are not immersed in the hobby, like we are, friends, acquaintances, I meet my friends, my kids' friends, parents when I'm at school events. And I say that, I might bring up Beckett, for example. And I expect people to know Beckett. If the only way they know the Beckett brand is if they collected back in the 80s and 90s. Same thing with Upper Deck. I think Upper Deck is a brand that a lot of people know. They advertise on hockey rink boards across the NHL. So, people that watch hockey might have heard of them. But I think you're right. Very few people. You mentioned PSA or collectors. No one's heard of PSA or collectors unless they are in the hobby or an adjacent hobby, comic books or coins or, that sort of thing. So I certainly agree with you on that. Now, you mentioned the commercial with Derek Jeter. How did you initially get Derek Jeter involved to endorse the Arena Club brand and to become and what is his involvement, if you can tell us that? But how did you get him involved? What is his involvement?
Yeah, so I love Derek, one of the greatest partners I've worked with. So we started the company together about 3 years ago. He's our co-founder. And I've known Derek for a very long time. And so I remember meeting him initially at a charity event down in New Orleans once. This is probably a good 15 years ago. And then met up again with him at an event, a conference that I was speaking at, and he was speaking right after me. And I remember him telling me, like, gosh, Brian, if you ever start something in the sports category, let me know. Right. So when I came up with this idea for Arena Club, I pinged him and said, hey, Derek, what do you think? He's like, absolutely, let's go do this. Right. Because he was a collector and he collects sports memorabilia more than cards, although he lost all his cards, unfortunately, in a flood at his parents' house. But he loves collecting in general. He loves the idea of Arena Club. And we talk probably once every couple of days. And strategize around different marketing campaigns and branding campaigns and just different strategic directions of the business. And
so I look at now Card Vault by Tom Brady, just as another sort of brand that seems to be doing a pretty good job getting the name out there and working with somebody, an athlete that is somewhat on the same level as a Derek Jeter, if not even I don't know who's better known. Me, it's tough to say, but it doesn't matter. They're both extremely well known. So you started with Derek Jeter. We've got the Card Vault by Tom Brady, working with Tom Brady with a chain of LCSs now. What do you think? Are we going to start to see more? Are you hearing any more of that? Especially, we had Fanatics Fest a couple weekends ago. Tons of celebrities and well-known athletes there. Are you hearing any rumblings of more athletes teaming up with brands to help grow the hobby overall?
No, I am. You get all these athletes who are reaching out to a lot of different companies in the industry wanting to be part of it. And so everyone sees Mike Trout ripping cards all the time, right? And everyone sees Giannis ripping cards. And so it's definitely growing. And I think there will be more and more kind of athlete associated businesses moving forward. We're pinged probably every day by an athlete, Jeremy, just to let you know, that want to be part of Arena Club now that we're getting a little bit of traction. So it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to be in the hobby. It's an exciting time for some of these athletes to get involved. But yeah, I see more and more of that happening in the future.
And what about marketplace? You mentioned earlier that you're seeing more and more Arena Club slabs via the slab pack product appear in showcases or showrooms on Arena Club. Mm-hmm. How have you been going about growing that aspect of the Arena Club offering, and how has that growth been over there?
Yeah, so the marketplace has grown probably a good 20x in the last year. Right, so we've grown the marketplace tremendously. There are a lot of sales happening on Arena Club. A lot of the auction is very lively. So for those of you who haven't checked out Arena Club's auctions, you should. I mean, you could probably get some good deals as well on Arena Club. And so we're definitely pushing that forward. We're adding more and more kind of bells and whistles. This is the first time I've ever built a marketplace. So it's been a lot of fun, a lot of learnings. In terms of supply side and demand side, and making sure that you're keeping that pretty even keeled as you kind of ramp up and grow. But there's a lot of tools that we still have to add in to the marketplace, like seller tools and so forth. I mean, when you look at world-class sites like eBay, they've got a lot of tools available to their sellers and their buyers and so forth. So we've got a lot of catching up to do in that sense. But we do want to build a world-class product as we grow.
What have been some of the most significant challenges that you've encountered along the way, both in terms of marketplace and in terms of the grading? I mean, with the grading we kind of talked about, but anything that you haven't mentioned yet that has been challenging?
It's all challenging, Jeremy. I'll be honest with you. It's like business is business. It's like business is never up and to the right forever. Every company that you can name, every single one, has challenges, right? And some of those challenges are tougher than others, and there are dark days and bright days and everything in between, ups and downs and all arounds, right? The true key to success is consistency, right? It's consistency. It's constant innovation, bringing that innovation to your customer. And so for us, the marketplace for us, it really is about innovation. We're trying to add as many kind of new whistles and bells and so forth that are exciting kind of products for the end user. So for example, we're launching this loyalty program. I'm probably jumping the gun, and my product team's going to yell at me on Monday, but it's an amazing loyalty program, unlike anything that is out there in the hobby. Right, where you can pick up all these points and add points to this and that, and use these points to purchase slab packs or other cards, or other cards in auction, or get your cards graded. There's all these different kind of mechanisms that we're going to tie it to, but it's just constantly innovating and bringing that to the hobby. And so, look, it's kind of like what I mentioned before about building a brand, right? The thing about building is everyone says like the word brand so easily. Oh, it's a brand, it's like this athlete's a brand, that's a brand, everything's a brand. But what truly is a brand? Right? And for me, it's kind of like, it takes time, it takes money, but the most important thing, it takes extreme consistency in the delivery of your promise to your consumer, to your customer, right? And I remember like way back in the day, I was watching television. I was watching a commercial. It was a Nike commercial, and it was Lance Armstrong, of all folks. And I remember this commercial vividly because he was riding his bike, and he was riding a bike up, I think, the Swiss or French Alps, and all you heard was his breathing and the 10-speed bike going, the wheels going, and it would zoom in on the wheels and zoom back out. It was a beautiful film commercial. And at the end, it was just like the swoosh, and it just said, "Live strong," right? That's all it was, right? And I was like, wow, I want to live strong, right? And I remember I went to the local bike shop and I asked the guy, I said, I want a Nike bike. This is what I told him. I want a Nike bike. And the guy looks at me and says, Nike doesn't make bikes. And that's when it occurred to me. I was like, wow, that's a brand that will really invoke a feeling in you, right? That really resonates with you so deeply that you will buy whatever that brand is selling you, right? And so for me, it was just like, that's what I want to build. I want to build a brand that truly resonates with the consumer, right? When someone in this hobby thinks Arena Club, they know what we stand for. They know we stand for innovation, technology, and bringing the best product that we can to the customer. So that's what we're trying to build.
How did you come up with the name Arena Club? I mean, without assuming the obvious, what does that mean to you, to your co-founders?
Yeah, so for us, it was all about something related to sports, because that's really our strength, although we do some TCG and some Pokemon and so forth. But for us, it was all about the feeling of stepping into an arena, right? And having the spotlight on you and giving people a show, right? And that's what it was about for us. It was about, the feeling of going into a stadium, a coliseum, an arena, and actually being entertained. And that's what we wanted people to feel when they came to arenaclub.com.
Okay, fair. I like that. You were talking a lot about branding. Now you have a couple of successful entrepreneurial ventures, maybe more than a couple, under your belt already. What experiences in your entrepreneurial journey that led you to launching Arena Club? Which experiences, which techniques, what have you used the most? What have you brought to the sports card industry with Arena Club that you learned with your other ventures?
I would really say it is the transparency aspect. So even with the Honest Company, for example, we were one of the very first companies to really go out there and really highlight the ingredients that we're using in every product, right? Because the Honest Company, I started with Jessica Alba. And for those of you who don't know, it was a diaper and wipes business, baby shampoo, and so forth.
Oh, I know it. I know it. I have 2 young kids. My wife used all those products all the way through. So we use all those. Yeah, we've used a lot of Honest Company products. So yeah.
I appreciate you. Next time you need some Honest products, let me know.
I'll hit you up. Well, my kids. Okay, well, I'll talk to my wife. Thank you.
But yeah, so it was really about like understanding what the customer wanted. Right, the customer wanted transparency. They wanted to know exactly what ingredients were in this lotion that they were putting onto their baby. Right, and that was kind of an eye-opening moment for me to understand, like, these customers will look at every single ingredient and analyze it on their own, right? And so for us, it was all about being that transparent company that stayed away from harmful, ingredients. And so that was one aspect that I took with me, and understanding that even the collectors in the hobby, they want that transparency. They want to understand every aspect. They want to understand why their card's graded a certain way. They want to understand what the odds are if they buy a repack product, so forth. So that was definitely one big thing that we brought to Arena Club. It was also just more about customer service. It's really about customer service for us. It's about sticking to standards and bending over backwards to make sure the customer is happy.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I live by the general rule for me, believe it or not, is that, how people always say, oh, the customer's always right. The customer's always right, so forth. You've heard that before. I don't necessarily agree with that, truthfully speaking, but I do believe the customer is extremely important, right? But the most important aspect of your business is your people. Right, your people come first, because happy people, happy employees, happy team members lead to happy customers. I 100% believe that.
Yeah.
And so we treat our employee base extremely well, and hopefully that translates into a happy customer. But in terms of building that brand and understanding customer service, it was really from the early days of LegalZoom, even when I started LegalZoom, getting that repeat customer. I always believed you could always almost get anyone to try something once, right? The trick is getting them to try it twice, 3 times or more, right? That repeat buyer, that repeat customer, right? And so that's the only real metric that we pay attention to at Arena Club is repeat usage.
Okay.
Right. So understanding, why this customer churned off, isn't buying anymore, or isn't, trading cards with us anymore, so forth. That's the key. You have to understand, the customer's journey and why they're using you, or why they frequent Arena Club versus why they're not, and keep improving to the point where they'll come back and keep using you.
Yeah, I mean, like they say, the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of your business is going to come from 20% of your customers, and if they're coming back, that's a win. I think for sure. You've mentioned staff, and I wanted to ask you, how has it been staffing up both the grading side of things, the marketplace side of things, and the slab pack business as well? But then I have to think that there's the technological backing behind all these things, the foundation that these all live on. How has that been going for you guys? Have you had turnover challenges with staffing, or has it been pretty smooth?
It's been relatively pretty smooth. We have lost probably a couple people that didn't work out, just like any other business. But most of our people have been with us since the start, and they're still with us. So we're pretty excited about the foundation that we've built. We have a core team. We're mostly based in Los Angeles, but we do have a office in Beaverton, Oregon as well. And that's where we have our vaults, and that's where our card operations are in Beaverton, Oregon. But everyone else sits in Los Angeles. But we're a small team. We're a small, growing team, but we're small. I'm used to, building companies with very, very large teams. Like, for example, LegalZoom at its peak had a few thousand employees. And even Honest Company, we hit probably 500-600 employees by the time I moved on. But yeah, so I'm used to, larger organizations. But the craziest thing, Jeremy, is with the usage of AI and the tools that are available today, you could build, much more efficient companies in a lot of ways. And so we're taking full advantage of as much AI as we can when it comes to building Arena Club.
So we've talked about so Arena Club is a marketplace, it's a grading company, and it's a repack business. Is there a fourth pillar coming? You might not drop a bomb like that here tonight with us, but maybe you will. Is there something else coming that you guys are looking at right now?
Yeah, there definitely is. We're always working on something. Like I said, it's always about innovation. It's always about pushing forward. Because if you don't innovate, if you don't push forward, you will die. I'm a firm believer that when it comes to business, you will die, right? I mean, look at Sears, right?
Yeah.
What happens when you don't embrace .com? You die, right? And so for me, it's like when I'm looking at Arena Club, we want to keep pushing forward. Now, I mean, even with our repack slab pack product, we've got a lot of competitors now, trying to copy us and so forth, and trying to launch their own products via, the internet, the way that we're doing it. So how do we stay ahead? The way you stay ahead is you constantly have to evolve yourself. You got to move forward. You got to offer more. You got to be better and faster. And so for us, we definitely have 1 or 2 large initiatives that will launch within the next, call it 6 months to 1 year. One has to do with live, right? The other one has to do with kind of more offline stuff. And so we're working on a lot of things. I can't necessarily tell you exactly what we're doing, but pretty exciting stuff.
Is it fair to say, or for me to guess, that if you are going to launch a fourth pillar of Arena Club, and it might be like you mentioned live, so live, we've got Whatnot, we've got Fanatics Live, eBay Live. If you at Arena Club are going to launch Arena Club Live, is it fair to say, or for me to guess again, that it's going to bring something that's different from what those other companies are bringing right now? Are you going to innovate further than they have already, at least in concept?
We believe that we will innovate further. I mean, it'll be something unique to Arena Club and to our customer base. I've never been one to just copy what's out there. I mean, it's like I don't like to just copy. If I'm going to bring anything to the hobby, to our business, it's going to be something unique and innovative, and hopefully it'll resonate with the customer.
How active are you day to day with Arena Club?
Oh, I'm there every day.
Okay. Is it your number one? It's your main business right now that you are working on, putting your blood, sweat, and tears into?
Absolutely. I'm the CEO and I'm responsible. And so for me, it's but here's the craziest thing, Jeremy. The craziest thing is that, when you're younger, and you ask like older, wiser people that are successful for advice, and they'll tell you stuff like, just follow your dreams, follow your passions, and so forth. You're like, yeah, whatever. I've got student loans to pay. I've got a mortgage to pay. I've got car payments. Right? I need a job. But this is truly the first time where I'm working on something that I just love. I just love this category. I love the industry. I love collecting cards. I go to card shows on weekends, Jeremy. I mean, this is not work. This is not work. And so this is truly the very first time where I could say that I'm not working. I'm having fun. I'm having fun building. And yes, are there challenges? Sure, there are challenges. But even challenges are fun when you're working on something that you love. And so this is the first time in my career, in my 5-year career of starting companies and building on them, this is the first time I'm actually having the time of my life.
That's awesome. I'm happy for you. I mean, again, we have come across each other. We've broken bread together. Again, to people who've just got here, we had a nice sushi dinner together 3 or so years ago. You mentioned, when we're younger, we might ask people with more experience, how do you become successful? So I'm going to put it to you now. I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to give you a more specific question, which is, if somebody is looking to break into the sports card industry with a business of some sort, two-pronged question, Brian. Number one, do you think that the sports card industry is is it still growing? Is the future even brighter than it is now? Is this a place where people should and could launch businesses? And then number two, what advice would you give somebody who is planning to do that?
It's a great question. And so for the first part, I would answer 100% absolutely yes. The industry is growing and it's gaining more traction. I go to card shows, like I said, almost every weekend around the country, and I've never seen it so busy and just growing, and so many young kids collecting again, right? Which makes you understand that the hobby is strong, and it's going to stay strong for a long time, hopefully. And I think we've all learned from the sins of the past, from the junk wax era and everything else in between, and all the shenanigans that we've all dealt with over the course of the last couple decades. But I think we've learned from that, and I think that the industry will stay strong for the time being and for a while to come. So if you are starting to think of starting a company in the hobby, I would say yes, it's a great time. In terms of what they should be looking at, there's so many things, right? There's so many different kind of columns, if you will, in this business. And so you have to decide what angle do you want to take. Is there an opening, right? Is there truly an opening, right? So if you're going to say, I'm just going to start another grading company, right, with nothing new about it, with nothing innovative, probably not going to work. Right? Probably not going to work. But if you're going to bring something new to the hobby, even if it's already existing, but done so in a unique way, then yeah, you'll have a shot. Right? But it's really about bringing that innovation to the hobby in whatever you do.
Appreciate that. I think that's important. There's some people in the chat who are just saying, when you are having fun, if you're passionate about what you're doing, you're not really working. I feel like you are doing that right now. I'm doing that right now. You know, it's I just, you know, I love this hobby. I love being immersed in it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. It's my lifestyle. It's your lifestyle now too. We talked earlier about challenges that you have encountered, you know, building this business at Arena Club. I want to flip it. I want to go to the opposite. What are some pleasant surprises that you've encountered along? What are a few things, or one, two, whatever, that maybe were easier than you thought, or yeah, breaking into the business? What were some pleasant surprises for you guys along the way?
Yeah, that's a great question too. Many pleasant surprises. Number one, I feel like I was really embraced by a lot of the folks that were already in the hobby. You know, it was very welcoming for me. You know, like I mean, I just met so many people in such a short amount of time. Because before that, I was honestly just a collector. I kind of stuck to myself. I accumulated a massive collection, right? Just to let you know, I think I might have one of the strongest collections of Asian iconic athletes in the world.
Are you collecting Shohei currently?
I am, of course. I'm collecting Shohei. Who isn't collecting Shohei?
Yeah.
I've collected a lot of kind of iconic Asian athletes from that led to the ability of the Shoheis and the Ichiros to even play, you know, the Murakamis and the Sudahara O's and so forth. It's like I've collected, you know, quite extensively Asian iconic athletes. I digress right now. What was the question, Jim?
We were talking about pleasant surprises, but Yao Ming, do you collect Yao Ming as well?
Yao Ming, I love Yao Ming, of course. You know, I'm like even like Jeremy Lin. I've collected Jeremy Lin. I collect every Asian athlete. So Chloe Kim in snowboarding to Na Li in tennis to like, you know, I mean, you name the Asian athlete and I've probably collected them. They're probably in my collection. So everyone from the, you know, the iconic kind of historic players like Normie Kwong. So not a lot of people know who Normie Kwong is. Do you know who Normie Kwong is, Jeremy?
Well, he was a hockey player. He was the first Asian hockey player, I believe. He has a card, actually. One card, I think. Well, maybe there's two now, but yeah, he had a card that came out in the, you know, probably 2005, 6, 7 in there somewhere. I think In the Game made a Normie Kwong card. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, just to let you know, I'm not to like correct you or anything, but that was Lenny Kwong. Normie Kwong was So Normie Kwong was the first Chinese professional football player. Right. So he played in the Canadian Football League. This is probably in 1948. Yeah. But Kwong, I guess, is a very common Chinese Canadian last name because he was also the first to break the barrier in the NHL as well. The last name Kwong. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And I just want to let everybody know watching, you know, just so you know, just to be certain, Brian and I, we are not brothers. We are not related. We have the same last name. We have the most common last name in the whole world is Lee. But we are not related, contrary to what some of you may have thought. Brian, this has been a great chat. I've enjoyed it. Let's go to some comments that have been coming in along the way. And then we'll let you go unless there's anything else you want to mention. Was there anything else you had on your mind that you wanted to talk about?
No, I've had so much fun, you know, on the show, and would love to answer questions if there are any.
Okay. Well, okay. So let's do some comments. I got one more I'm going to ask you at the end, but let's just say hello because I haven't done comments yet. Laura, welcome to the show. Stooks is here. Welcome to the show, Stooks. Pick 6 cards. Well, we did some comments earlier, but we've had a lot more people pour on in. Jacob Dahl, welcome. Mike Petty, very handsome guys, the Lee brothers. Piccolina the cat, good evening. Dan's Vintage, welcome to the show, Dan. Theo's in the back. We're bringing Theo on in about 15 minutes, everybody. Don't worry. Chad Shipper, good to see you, Chad. Orlando says, Brian's done a great job growing Arena Club. Very nice. From Orlando, he says, definitely need more transparency with the grading companies. That's what Arena Club is trying to do. That's what Tag's trying to do. And, you know, maybe some others as well. Found Treasures, welcome to the show. Wax Pack Wisdom. James Wynn says, transparency. Let's go. Vintage Double D is in the house. What's up, Dylan? Great job with Greg on Midlife and Joe, of course. Triple V says, honest corners too. We love corners. Double D. I missed the beginning. What is the Arena Club slab label? So, you know, you've got all the 3-letter acronyms. What is does Arena Club have an acronym, or is it simply Arena Club 9, Arena Club 10?
It's actually just Arena.
Arena 9, Arena 10. That's how that's the
We
brand
don't have
for
an
the
acronym. Yeah, we use Arena. So if you look on our slabs, it says Arena on the back.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna later on in the show after you're gone, we're talking about this Zeagley company that if we were close to April 1st, I would be convinced that was an April Fool's joke. But anyway, we'll get to that a little bit later. We've got Tony, Southern Collector. Welcome to the show. Orlando says, is Arena Club going to expand to the vintage card market?
It's a great question. That's a great question. And the answer is yes, just not now. And so we've definitely been requested that from quite a few people. We do grade vintage cards. We haven't had a vintage card drop in our slab packs yet, but we are thinking about it. And we're great friends with Greg Morris and some others. And so we will probably do that in conjunction with someone who probably knows vintage best. And so we'll probably do a slab pack with someone that, lives and breathes vintage. So maybe Leighton, maybe Greg Morris, maybe something like that.
Okay, great. Midlife Greg says, transparency in grading sounds refreshing. It sure does. Jeff McMahon, welcome. Mark Santucci, welcome to the show. Orlando says, when you do something you love, it is not work. That's right. Dan's vintage. Dan, I'm not mad at the chat. What are you talking about? He says, Jeremy is mad at the chat. I know that. Like, no, I'm not. I love the chat. Please. I'm glad you're all here for sure. Dan also says, let's see some cards, Brian, but I happen to know you're in a hotel room right now. So I'm guessing.
Yeah, I don't have my cards. I'm sorry. I didn't know I was supposed to bring any, Jeremy. My bad.
That's okay. Next time.
No.
Next time. Midlife Greg says, I love when business owners in the hobby are actual collectors too. Yeah, no doubt about that. Michael Ham, welcome to the show. Curmudgeon, welcome. Mike Double V, welcome to the show. Terry Anderson says, guys, your last name is my middle name. We must be brothers. We are certainly then all related. Definitely. Jake Dahl says, Greg Morris is great for cards. I bought a lot of my 1960 Topps baseball singles from him. One of the best. There we go. And Foul Ball, welcome to the show to you as well. Philly Joe is in the house too. Welcome. D. Perez is in the house as well. Welcome to the show. He does mention to you, Brian, any thoughts on Yang Hansen? Just picked up in the NBA draft. I think he may become a good player. Are you familiar with Yang Hansen?
I am, and I think he is a baller. I am collecting him right now.
Okay.
For sure.
Good. So I wanted to ask you too. So Arena Club, the slab packs, and listen, I'm on your mailing list. So I get an Arena Club email almost every day, a new slab pack, all the different brands there. And if you click through, you can get a lot of information on Arena Club about the slab packs. So I wanted to ask you, and I mean, we've been talking about transparency. I think it's of the utmost importance, but I wanted to get your take on the risk offering that is inherent in a repack, right?
Sure.
You mentioned at the top of the show, you were at the National, someone with $50. He didn't even know what was in there in his own mystery pack product. Do you look at the Arena Club slab packs as a mystery pack? And can you just speak to the risk inherent with something like this, and how do you reconcile and rationalize that aspect of it?
Sure. So the way that we look at our slab pack business, or repack business, if you will, it really is about trying to bring as much transparency into to the customer as possible. So we do publish all cards on the live checklist. We do publish all odds and the chances that you could hit certain cards. But for myself personally, I've been collecting cards like I told you since I was 8 years old, and for me, it's always been about the chase. Always, right? So if I open that, when I was younger, I would go for let's say I'm looking for that Ken Griffey, that upper deck pack that you mentioned before. You're going for the Ken Griffey, right? And most of the time, you didn't get the Ken Griffey. That's the chase, right? When Panini had the LeBron James triple logo man, right? That everyone was chasing, and I remember they were selling these cases for, if you remember, Jeremy, $20,000 cases.
Yeah.
Right? And everyone, I remember watching Drake on a live stream open 20 of them. Right. So he dropped what, 400 G looking for the LeBron James triple logo man. Right. And so it's always, to me, it's always been about the chase and but Panini's not going to tell you the odds of getting that card. It's very rare that you actually understand like what am I chasing here? What are the odds? What there's not a lot of transparency there. Right. And in today's world, it's like, how cool would it be if they told me exactly what my chances were? Right. So I'll give you an example of something that we just did last week. We had a downtown slab pack, and I believe it was like $300, and you were guaranteed a downtown, right? And I mean, you all know that downtowns are, it's a case hit, right? It's not a box hit, it's a case hit. So to offer, a guaranteed downtown for $300 with a chance of hitting some pretty high-end downtowns, why not? Why not? It's like we're making it transparent, we're making it easy, and collectors are used to the chase regardless, and so we're just making it a little bit more transparent.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you on stated odds and not really knowing what the chances are. One of the things that bothers me the most about new product are unnumbered chase cards. I would like to know how many there are out there, and then you kind of can have an idea of how many might be left if you are monitoring the various marketplaces. So I think transparency is of the utmost importance right now. And but I think not being transparent by the card companies is a part of the strategy to sell more product. So I understand why they're doing it. I don't like it, and they probably don't care that I don't like it, but I understand why they do it from a financial bottom line shareholder return perspective. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand. And it's been the same way since the beginning of card collecting. I don't think it's going to change. Yeah. And that's one of the most fun parts, honestly, of collecting cards. At least for me, it's like I actually love ripping wax. I just love it. I love chasing cards. I love collecting cards. I love everything about it.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, listen, Brian, I've had fun chatting with you, and I'll just see if there's any more questions in the chat. Defend Pro Canada, more great guests. I love it. Best podcast out there. Thank you, Chris. Always good to see you. Vintage Oddball says 4 weeks until the National. Let's go. Will you be at the National, Brian? Will Arena Club be at the National?
I will be at the National, of course, and so will Arena Club. So please come visit our booth.
Yeah, to everybody in the chat, I'll definitely come say hello. Mike Petty says, I remember Drake turning $400,000 into, that's lunch money for Drake, turning that into dust. Yeah, no doubt. Jeremy has entered the chat, not me, a different Jeremy. Welcome to the chat. To Jeremy, Texas Rangers PC, welcome to the show. Vintage Oddball, can't wait to walk the floor with Petty. Producer Louie from the Hockey Cards Gong Show is here. What's up, Louie? Good to see you as well. All right, Brian. Well, listen, thanks for joining. I'll let you go, and appreciate you coming on and having the discussion.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Jeremy. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks. Same to you, Brian. Enjoy your travels.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care. All right. Thank you to Brian for joining us, everybody. And now we are going to first bring Josh Adams on. Josh, are you good to go? Give me thumbs up, buddy. All right.
So,
how are you, dude? Hey, how's it going?
Good. Good evening. What's new?
Well, we're here on Saturday night, Sports Cards Live. There is something new, but it's not till the very end of the episode, guys. I mean, once we're done, there is something new on the back end of the show. But Josh, I want to thank you for filling in for Joe Perot, who was just, hey, he couldn't make it tonight. He's got some things going on. I said, no problem, Joe. You have a nice night off. It was great to see him on Midlife Cards with Greg on Friday. So thank you for filling in and coming on to keep us company here. I appreciate it.
Happy to be a spot starter for you, man. Whenever you need me, just get a call from the bullpen. I'll come in. So
there we go. All right, now we are going to get things started. There's been a lot of demand in the chat, a lot of anticipation in the chat. We have an absolute hobby YouTube celebrity about to join us. I see him blushing in the back room there. Theo, are you ready to come on? He's giving me a thumbs up. All right, guys, please welcome everybody. Theo Clemente, collector, 2 sports cards live for the very first time. Theo, how are you, buddy?
I am doing great. The chat, there's just absolute legends in there. I had to slip them all a little bit of money, but thank you guys. I appreciate it.
I figured. I mean, they've been asking for you for the last hour already. And you know what? I'll tell you, I was like, well, maybe we'll just stretch it out. Let's keep them here a little bit longer too, right?
Hold me to the last hour. Keep them in here. Yeah, that's
exactly.
Smart.
Exactly. Well, they're all happy to have you. I'm happy to have you, Theo. It's great to have, So first of all, there's a couple, we have some topics, and Josh, we have some really fun topics to talk about with Theo that I can't wait to get into. Before we do that, let's get some administrative announcements out of the way. Big announcements, I would say. Let's start talking about HobbyPalooza. HobbyPalooza is coming up the weekend of July 18th and 19th, I believe it is. And Theo, I've been a part of HobbyPalooza. I mean, all but one of the years up to this point. I will be on HobbyPalooza the Saturday night, finishing off the Saturday night coming up here. I'm excited about that. What would you like to tell people about HobbyPalooza? It's on the 4 Collectors YouTube channel. Say a few words about HobbyPalooza.
Yeah, sure. So it's actually 3 days this year. This is the first year we're doing Friday night, Saturday all day, and then Sunday all day. And it's going to be the first year that we're doing 30 hours of content. So that's 30 different individual live streams. It'll probably go over 30 hours because on Saturday night, your show is going to be the nightcap on Saturday night, which is going to be awesome. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention The Odd Couple is one of the big headliners there. And Tony and Petty are in the chat right now. They do a terrific job. But I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention this is all for Signatures for Soldiers. We raised money for them. We gave them the biggest check that they've ever received from the event last year, and we'd love to even make it bigger this year. So
that's great. I'm so excited to be a part of it again, to help raise awareness and raise funds for Signatures for Soldiers, a wonderful cause. And it's, I remember HobbyPalooza, I believe, started because the National wasn't going to happen in 2020. And a group of fellas decided, well, hey, let's have an online virtual event. And it was awesome because you're bringing on all these different content creators. They're each getting an hour of time, and they are all bringing something different to the audience, which is kind of moving from channel to channel. Now, this year, it's all going to be streaming to the 4 Collectors channel. So that's really cool. There's kind of a place where everybody can congregate and hang out. I'm excited about it. When is your slot, Theo?
I am doing so my slot when I have my show, I'm going to do a pre-national show with Mike Junkwax Hero and a couple other guys. One's Mark Steinberg, and it's going to be Saturday at 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. And then I also am running the background on the shows on Saturday night because we all take a turn of running the background for the shows. But yeah, it's going to be epic. This is the second year that we're running it, but Mike Moynihan is the one that started it all up. So we definitely give him credit for that. And that's why it started, because the National wasn't open during COVID. So
that's right. So guys, as you see on the screen, John, 3D 80s kid, someone who is working really hard on the project as well, lets us know it is July 18th to 20th, the 4 Collectors YouTube channel. And so that's great. That's HobbyPalooza. Next item of business, Theo. Josh, you'll want to hear this. Vintage Trade Night at the National is officially a thing. Theo,
let's go.
Why don't you take it away and share what you want to share about that?
Sure. This is breaking news. We haven't even got a chance to talk about it on our channel yet, but this is the first time we're talking about it. And on Saturday the National, 4 Collectors is going to be in the vintage area of the trade night. The trade night this year, they're having it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it's going to be in the same building as the card show. I believe it's upstairs. I think it's in the VIP area. I'm not 100% sure on that, but basically what they're going to do is they're going to take the trade night floor and they're going to make it into sections this year. So there's going to be like a basketball section, a ticket stub section, and they're actually doing a vintage only section this year. And on Saturday night, the 4 Collectors is taking over the vintage only area. We're actually, Jeremy Lee's going to be there. Leighton's going to be there. So we got a couple headliners, and Chris Sewell is going to actually come on Saturday night. So if you want to meet some of them there, but we're going to be giving away free packs like we did at Strongsville. We're going to have a drawing for a mantle card, and we're going to be giving away shirts too. So we got some stuff planned. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Shirts and a drawing for a mantle card. Get me one of those shirts, Theo. I'm an XL if it's kind of large fitting. Otherwise, I might need a double XL. Josh, what do you think? Vintage trade night at the National. We're gonna walk over there together, or what?
Absolutely. It sounds amazing. I've never done a trade night because I'm probably too old for most of them, but I would definitely do a vintage one, especially if they have like tickets, and dust always prevails. So I'm excited.
Theo, what that refers to is so Josh and I are in a group chat together with a bunch of modern collectors, and we kind of the vintage guys in that group. There's maybe it's just you and me, Josh, for that matter, but they refer to vintage as dust. And Josh and I have taken that we're happy with calling it dust, because sometimes vintage can be dusty, but we love the vintage, we love the dust. And can't wait to come check out that trade night. So, guys, Saturday night, National, at the National Sanctioned Trade Night, there will be the 4 Collectors. They are kind of sponsoring or promoting the event. And so come down and hang out. It's going to be fun. I'll be down there for sure. Cannot wait. Okay, Theo, let's get into some, and Josh, let's get into some hobby discussion topics now, guys. And Theo, I want to thank you. You came up with some great ideas here. So let's start with grails, because people talk about hobby grails all the time, and it's often thought that a grail has to be, Honus Wagner T206 for, $4 million. That's not even going to sell because it doesn't hit reserve, or it's going to be a Michael Jordan PMG, whatever it might be. Why don't we start, Theo? What is your perspective on what a grail is or can be?
Yeah, so I think there's one that's an and or an or. It's a monetary number that you can't, like a 52 mantle is a perfect example for somebody. A 52 mantle, you'll see them at every table at the National, but the amount of money it costs a collector to buy it, that could cause them to have that as their grail, right? And then the and or is the scarcity part. So a grail could be one or maybe 2 of them out there. So it's just a matter of just being able to find that card. And I think the last part is the meaning to the collector. So a 52 mantle wouldn't be a grail for me because it wouldn't mean that to me, right? So I think meaning to the collector is number one, right? And then I think, like I said, the amount of money it costs or the scarcity is like an and or situation, in my opinion.
That really makes a ton of sense for me. As you're speaking, I'm thinking to myself, and Josh, I want to get your thoughts on this. I'm thinking to myself, a grail can be a card that is not scarce, maybe not rare, but that you really have to save up for. So it might not be a grail to somebody else, but it can be your personal grail. I think grail is one of those terms that everybody can have their own definition, or it can be something different to everybody in the hobby. So that's one thing. So it's either something maybe you have to save up for, or it's something that you really have to hunt down and search for because it is super hard to find. So that's the and or, right? It could be one of, or it could be both. What do you think, Josh? I mean, I know you recently picked up one, I think about a year ago or so, you picked up one of your major grails, not a vintage, mind you, but it's funny, guys, in our more modern group chat, Josh is always throwing down vintage cards just to show these guys how cool they can be and try to maybe even convert them or just show them. But Josh, what do you think about the grail definition?
So I think it's either there could be a subjective and an objective definition. Subjective, I think, is what Theo just talked about, what it means to the collector. So everyone's got a different grail, right? Yep. For me, could be a Frank Thomas card, or it could be a 48-leaf page. Then there's the objective definition, which I think is like the Wagner, a Ruth, Baltimore News, or can't think of anything else right now off the top of my head, or like a Joe Jackson rookie, or even the Boston Store Jacks. There was like 3 of them. So I think it depends, right? And if you're looking subjective, then, you know, like you said, there's hobbies for everybody, and everyone's personal grail is different. I think that's what's great about this hobby, that, you know, a 52 Bowman, you know, maze could be someone's grail, and it could not be for someone else. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think what also comes to mind, Theo, I want to get your thoughts on this, is there, and Josh kind of triggered this in my mind. We all have our own personal grails. They may not be your grail because, hey, you could go, you know, if 50K is chump change for you, you can go buy anyone else's grail anytime. Right. So I think there are individual grails, but I think, like Josh said, and do you agree, Theo, that there are universal grails, the cards that are, you may not covet it yourself. You may not have your eyes set on a Tito 6 Wagner or a Michael Jordan PMG, but you would still agree that it is a universal hobby grail. Does that resonate or reconcile with your look at things?
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I think there's, like you said, there's a handful of hobby cards that if anybody saw it, they would recognize that card, even if they weren't a collector. And I could see that for sure. I think the question I want to bring to the table today is, could a grail be a card you didn't know exist, and you didn't recognize it as your grail until you bought it that day? Is that even possible? So I'd love to hear your thoughts before I maybe present, you know, how I ended up picking up, to me, a grail card for me, and I didn't know it existed, so it was never sought after for a long period of time. So,
well, okay, Josh, you think about that, and then I've got two sort of stories that I think somewhat tie in, and these are both one is my own, and one is Tony Southern Collector. I mean, he picked up that Josh Gibson card recently. And I think it was the Tolateros, Josh Gibson. Now, I don't know that Tony knew it existed for that long. Maybe I don't know when he first knew that it existed. So I think that, yeah, you know, and I didn't know that card existed. So I think the answer to your question is yes. A grail can come up from out of nowhere and become your grail. I think that makes a lot of sense to me, Theo. The other one is, and this is myself picking up my Cracker Jack Joe Jackson. It was never on my want list, Theo, just like the Tito 6 Wagner is not on my want list, because I never thought that I would have the opportunity to acquire either of those cards. And then all of a sudden, not the Honus, of course, but the Joe Jackson appeared, and I realized I could get it done with the use of some services with Fund Your Cards and that.
Yeah.
So, you know, when the day before I saw that card get listed on the Fanatics Collect Premier Auction, card wasn't really on my radar. Like, I knew about it. I've seen it on all the vintage card posters and that you see out there in the wild even. And I've seen on the cover of auction catalogs, that sort of thing. But it wasn't my grail until I realized I could make it happen. And then it became my grail. And then I acquired my grail. And to this day, it's my grail. So I don't know that that's exactly what you're getting at, but between Tony Southern Collectors, Josh Gibson, my Joe Jackson, do those speak to the question that you're asking?
Yeah, I think so. And once Josh answers, I think a secondary question is, once you acquire your grail, is it fair to start a new grail chase, or are you locked into that one card? But yeah, let's have Josh answer his thoughts on can you have a grail that you didn't know existed until you buy it that day?
So I think the first short answer is yes. And I think the second part is you have to define what's the definition of a grail.
Right.
So once you have a definition of a grail, you could find it whenever you come across it at a card show. And I need this. And second question, absolutely you can start chasing another one, because that's like 90% of the fun is looking and chasing and hunting down this stuff. Like the guy right before you, Jeremy, was talking about like the hunt or the chase looking in packs. Vintage collectors do the same thing, but just not in packs. At shows, at tables, the internet, you know. So I think that the chase is what makes this hobby so much fun, and unearthing something that you didn't know existed. That Tolasteros card was hot like 20 years ago. It was hot, and then it kind of died down for a while. And it's a non-playing day card, but it's an awesome card. It's awesome. Like, how many Josh Gibson cards are there? You know,
yeah.
So The card's
Well,
great though.
Tony in the chat says, he says, I didn't grow up knowing about the Gibson. It wasn't until I returned to the hobby that I learned about it. That card wasn't discovered until 2003, which ties into what you're saying, Josh, 20 years ago. You know, that's about that. You're saying it was very hot 20 years ago once it was discovered.
Yeah.
And now maybe it's going to have a bit of a resurgence with it, you know, with people chasing down some of these more obscure, very important cards. And with what do you think, Josh, with the Negro League statistics being integrated with major leagues? I mean, is that a part of it maybe coming back now?
I think so. I think there's a ton of. Sorry, was that for me or Theo? I don't want to step.
Well, you said yeah, but what do you think, Theo?
I actually did some research on this when it happened, when they changed the stats in the Black Star set. The Josh Gibson absolutely skyrocketed, and the Shakey's Pizza Josh Gibson, which is I believe 1976, which is obviously not playing days, and neither were the Black Star cards. Both of those are crazy price. Shakey's Pizza Josh Gibson, you're looking at like $800 for like a mid grade for that. Which is crazy to me. So yes, with how few of the Tolateros there are, when the records book changed, I think Tony could speak to it, but I think there was definitely even a higher price for that card. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of sales on them because they're just not that many. So,
Josh, did you have any other thoughts? Kind of went from you right to Theo there.
I think, there's always been a very strong Negro League collecting community, and I think it's going to probably get even hotter now that, the stats were integrated. But a lot of those stats have been lost, because they didn't have like official record keepers, and it was just a real crazy time. But yeah, it's exciting. It's actually an exciting time in the hobby now for that.
So we're talking about, you get a Grail, which I've recently done, and then can I just go chase another Grail? Well, it's weird because the card I purchased is way more expensive than the next big card I want. So I'm thinking to myself, is that a letdown for me? But it's not at all. Like, to me, a Grail isn't tied to dollar value. It's tied to the ability to get it. So my Grail right now, my next Grail, 1941 play ball Joe DiMaggio. Now I can go buy one on eBay or Fanatics Collect any day I want. There are some out there, but what makes the chase so exciting is finding the right copy, the exact specific copy that I want. That is the Grail. Is not only now, Theo, about, can I afford it or does it exist? It is literally, does the copy I want exist, and how long will it take me to find the copy that I want for myself? What do you think of that?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And the eye appeal on the card you got there is amazing, which I'm sure you've heard a million times. But I understand where you're coming from with the eye appeal matching up with that card, and then the price point where you can be able to afford it, right? And I do want to talk about something. I've had a lot of people in the hobby bring up the purchase you made, and they point to 1915 Cracker Jack sales, and they go, well, look at this. And I go, you're not understanding how scarce the 14 set is. Can you just tell people, like, if it was a 15, it might not have been as impactful for you, like, or I don't want to speak for you, so go ahead.
No, Theo, you are bang on. You're bang on. I was not interested in the 1915 Cracker Jack Joe Jack. I only wanted the 1914. Two reasons. Number one, three: method of distribution, scarcity, and then perhaps the most important to me is that the back is right side up. Like all the rest of my vintage baseball cards, I like that the back is right side up. That's important to me. So yeah, I was not looking for nothing against the 1915. It's a great card, and you can often just lump them both into one and say, okay, so there's, 78 1914s and 200 and whatever 1915s, whatever that number is. So really there's only 300 altogether to choose from. I wanted to own one of those 1914 copies. The scarcity, the difficulty in finding, and the fact that, Theo, it was like the timing, it just was offered for sale. And that's when I just, decided to pounce and did a ton of research and made it happen. So that answer your question?
It does. It does. And I appreciate you talking about it because like I said, I tried to fight that fight a couple times, but I'm like, I'm not Jeremy. So I'm not gonna I'd love to ask you in person. So this was a good question to ask you. I would love to share though the card I recently picked up real quick and explain
Please.
the story if that's fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I was at the Pittsburgh card show this year and I walk across a card that it says on the slab owned by Roberto Clemente on the slab. It's an SGC slab. And I said, oh man, like I bought I'll show this doesn't need to be solar screen, but I bought a Daily Juice a while back, like a couple years ago, and there were 50 of these, okay, that I know of, and they say owned by Roberto Clemente up here, Roberto Clemente collection. So I knew of the fact that they had some cards that they got from his collection and they auctioned them off. I just didn't know where to get all the research from. So I left the show and I reached out to some guys that know a little bit more and have been chasing Clemente for a long time. And they were like, I'm not sure about that card, but they said, did you look in the Hunt auction? And I said, no. So in 2017, Hunt auction basically auctioned off a whole bunch of Clemente stuff. Vera and the family actually went to Hunt auction and had a huge auction. And he looked in the catalog for me and he found the card and there was only one of them. So I ended up getting a copy of the catalog. Mark Steinberg helped me out with that. But basically in this catalog here is a page of cards that Clemente owned. And they're all top space cards. And oh, there you go.
Yeah, very cool.
And then I went back to my video to see who that dealer was and what his phone number was, and was hoping that the card was still available, and it was. And it's his card right here. There
Very
it is.
nice.
And that's it's Clemente's MVP season as well. But yeah, so the card cost me $350. When it sold in auction, it sold for like $450 originally in 2017. But that was kind of that situation where once I pieced everything together with the auction and his family and the fact that I'm a baseball card collector, right? So yeah, if I got his hat or I got, equipment from him, that's one thing, but I love baseball cards the most. So that's what kind of brought everything together of just how crazy this find was for me. So
I think it's so cool. I love that your Grail, or one of them anyway, only cost $350. I think that is a completely legitimate Grail. So congratulations, man. I think that's absolutely just wonderful. And the fact that was owned by Clemente himself, and you are Clemente collector. I mean, just look behind him, everybody. I mean, if you aren't familiar with his setup on YouTube, and make sure you're checking out the Clemente Collector YouTube channel and subscribing to Theo. That's just that's so cool that he owned that card. I love stories of provenance like that. And I mean, to be the athlete himself, absolutely unbelievable. Okay, so I think we've covered the Grail discussion, unless Josh or Theo want to say anything else. We'll go to some comments. Josh, any final thoughts on Grails?
Just Theo, that's an awesome card, and it definitely belongs in your collection. That seems like the definition of a Grail. That's awesome. That's so cool. It's a great story.
Yeah.
Thank you. One thing I want to say is, since I'm a Pirates fan, this was graded by Dylan. It's a Dave Parker card. I just want to. He just passed today. So
condolences to all Pirates fans and the Pirates family and his family as well, of course.
The Cobra.
To the baseball fraternity. Lonely Basement says Joe does midlife and then bails on Jeremy. Right, Lonely? That's what Joe did me dirty this week. No, he's got a very legitimate reason, and no hard feelings, of course. Joe's one of my best friends. No hard feelings. Dan's Vintage says, I got my Grail in March. Now I'm just building projects. And so my question to Dan would be, are you open to discovering or adopting a new Grail later on? I mean, and I love that you're working on projects, because that's kind of what I'm doing too with this whole flight collecting thing. Timepiece Esquire says Josh Adams and Jeremy Lee should partner to create the industry's first 90s repack. Two of the most trusted and beloved names in the hobby Cards can instantly be listed on 90s auctions afterwards. Do it. Josh is waving his hand. He's saying no.
No
Josh,
way.
no way?
No way.
No. I did entertain a repack and no, I am not interested myself. But thanks for the vote of confidence. John, 3D 80s kid, the Grail term has been spoiled a bit by the quick flipper culture talking about acquiring a Grail and selling it hours later. Could not agree more. I think that the term Grail is maybe not the perfect term for a lot of these things, but people use it frivolously. They throw it around irresponsibly a lot of the times. Josh, I see you kind of thinking about it, and we've had discussions like this. Josh, what are your thoughts on that comment?
Well, words have meaning, and I think a Grail is a specific thing, but I think it's important for collectors like Theo and you and me and people in the chat to, maybe reclaim it, take it back, and use it for its intended purpose. Like a Grail is what Theo just found, not what he just showed us. I mean, not what he just found, not, what some hype beast flippers finds, and then 3 hours later it's sold at the National. So I think that's fine.
They pick up a Grail, they sell it, then it appears on Fanatics, then it appears on eBay, then it's on Golden, is a Grail, if a Grail gets kind of like just thrown around like that, is it still really a Grail? Well, that's going to be for everybody to decide for themselves. Cardboard Corner says that's all we do is chase the next card. Chasing is the hobby. Yeah, I like to try to take time to enjoy my cards as well, but hey, I'm adding cards to my watch lists all the time. Robert Scott says each person's Grail is subject to their own circumstances, usually attainable, but in time and with a little sacrifice. Ooh, the word sacrifice. Theo, back to you for a second on that. Do you think that you have, as we're trying to maybe, very casually here, define the word Grail, would you be comfortable adding into the definition, as part of the definition, that a Grail is a card you have to make a sacrifice for? You only had to spend $350.
Yeah,
so maybe
that's
not.
the thing. I wouldn't be willing. That's why I had monetary or scarce or scarce, because what if it was a 52 mantle and somebody handed you one and said, "Here, I want you to have this." Now you didn't have a sacrifice, right? So to me, it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, I think you're right. That that's well said, and I think it just proves that you don't always have to make a significant even you sacrifice $350, but you didn't maybe feel it that much, so maybe not a true sacrifice.
Right.
Tony, Southern Collector, says my 1915 Cracker Jack Joe Jackson is hiding his face right now. I knew that my comments would elicit some sort of emotion, but hey, the 1915 Cracker Jack is a Joe Jackson is a Grail in and of itself for many people. I think the 1914 is just a tougher Grail to attain simply based on scarcity. So no offense at all by me towards any Cracker Jack card from either year. They're all Grails. Orlando says my Grail is the 1895 Mayo Anonymous football card that I looked for my whole collecting life until about 10 years ago when I found one. Josh, you were nodding. You're familiar with this card?
Yes, I know that's a great set. It's the N300 football set. They finally identified who Anonymous was about 10 years ago. Also, Edgar Allan Poe's nephew's in that set, Poe on Princeton. So it's kind of a neat set.
Double D Dylan says 1933 Gowdy Ruth number 144, the greatest baseball card ever made, period. Dylan, that's my favorite card in my whole collection. So I love that card, Dylan. We fist pump, buddy. I agree. Collector's Dream Orlando says provenance is so important to me. Also, Mookie says I like the term cornerstone cards that represent the foundation of your hobby museum. You can lay all the cornerstones you want. Well said. Double D Dylan says crown jewel, another term to consider using. And Stuke says I like the hunt with no specific card in mind. And that's maybe something that like Dan's Vintage could consider right now, is like, I don't know what my next Grail is, but I'm going to be open-minded to it. Nothing specific in mind, but I'm on the hunt to find my next big chase. Something like that, perhaps. Okay, Theo, any final thoughts on Grails?
No final thoughts on Grails, but I will say Dan buys everything. He collects everything. I got to give him a hard time, but no
Yeah.
more thoughts on Grails.
All right. Let's move on to player collecting. Because Theo said to me, yeah, maybe we'll talk about like player collecting and why it's the best way to collect. And so I thought, okay, well, let's think about that. Is it the best way to collect? Because personally, I don't think so. I'm not against it. I am a player collector, but I'm also an other form of collector. So to me, it's not the best way, the only way, but it's certainly a very important and a lot of fun. But let's talk about it. And let's start, Theo, with, why? Why is player collecting in your mind? Okay, is it the best way to collect to you? And if so, why?
Yes, it's the best way to collect. And granted, I'm the type, I'll first and foremost say everybody should collect how they like to collect and what makes them happy. So I will start with that. But I'm going to say my piece on why I love player collecting. So I think it first starts off with there's different types of collectors. There's focused collectors and unfocused collectors. Now, when you're talking to an unfocused collector, there's not really any debate you can really give them because they're unfocused. But if you're talking to a focused collector, either they collect player, they collect team, they collect sets, they collect Hall of Famers. Now we can get down to a discussion, in my opinion. So if I'm talking to a focused collector, the biggest pro is you're collecting your GOAT, not anybody else's GOAT. You're collecting your GOAT or your GOATs. Because in my opinion, if you're a player collector, you can have 2 or 3 players or whatever. You could have a couple players. You don't have to have just one necessarily. And you're spending your hobby budget on the GOAT of what you want to collect. So there's nothing better. Like why spend money on a player? If you're a Pirates fan, why spend money on a Yankee? Makes no sense to me. But go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh, okay. So that's your sort of position. That's your argument for player collecting. Okay. So I have a few things. So I love how you said focused and unfocused. I would add a third type of collector, and that is where I fall in, Theo, the multi-focused collector. I am very focused on, I have several PCs in my PC. In my umbrella PC, I have several collections, and I am hyper focused on all of them. So I think you can be, and that comes with experience. I think that comes with, dipping your toes in the water of many different types as we develop and evolve as collectors, and we find where we are happiest in the hobby. Really, it's the pursuit of happiness in the hobby, because the hobby is an escape. It's a lifestyle for so many of us, certainly for myself. I'm sure all 3 of us. I know for Josh for sure. I think so for you too, Theo. So I would add the multi-focused collector. And that's where you can be focused on a dozen different PCs within the overall PC. So I'll start with that. Now, I'm a player collector. I've been a player collector for 30 years now. Dale Howardchuk from the Winnipeg Jets hockey team, where I grew up. He was my favorite player growing up. He was really the best player we ever had. And then we had Team Solani. So I'm a player collector of those guys and a few others as well. So I definitely am a player collector. Now, here is my argument against it. Now, this is not me saying don't do it, because what you said is you can collect your GOAT. This isn't my argument against it. This is my words of advice to expand your scope, perhaps. If you want to, no pressure, collect how you like, of course. But I think that one of them is you're limited. You are limited to only one player. And if it's a vintage player like Roberto Clemente, there's not a lot out there to collect. So you may get bored. If we're talking sport, I notice you have other types of collectibles behind you besides just cards, but there aren't a ton of vintage Clemente cards to collect. So once you're done, what do you do then?
Well, can I butt in on that?
Okay. Yeah, of course.
Well, you could fine tune that collection to make maybe better eye appeal examples of the cards you have already.
So
and
upgrading?
Then upgrade by eye appeal, not by grade itself. And then the other thing I want to say though is Clemente, for example, he has like the Topps 3D, the 68 Topps 3D. That's a grail, obviously, for any Clemente collector. That's over 60K. Now, granted, if you have a millionaire, they could probably say, yeah, I finished Clemente in 6 months. You know what I'm saying? But me, with my budget, I don't see me hitting a wall till maybe 10 years down the road, maybe. But go ahead, Jeremy. What were your other points?
Well, I think that's my biggest point, but that might be my only point. Well, there are some others. They're just not nearly, in my mind, as important. Things like the history's written, which is awesome. That's why you collect them, because you love the history. But there's no more. The excitement is over for the player in his career. So there's nothing really to get excited about, except if you're going to go find more clips of video to watch, which I would encourage you to do. Again, I'm a player collector of long retired players myself. So I am not, trust me, like, please understand, guys, I'm not arguing against player collecting. I am one myself. Now, where I do have, Theo, where I do advise against player collecting is the active ultra modern world, where you are collecting a player because he is on your favorite team. That, to me, you know how many over the past 30 years in the message board world, Theo, where I have seen collectors say, well, he got traded, collections available, don't want it anymore. And I'm like, so you were only, so you put all your, like, you actually thought he was going to be on that team till he retired. And now after 15 years of hard work, or 5 or 3 or whatever, you don't care anymore? Were you even a fan of, like, to me, if you're going to collect a modern player, think ahead of time. Are you going to collect him once he moves to another team? So modern player collecting, to me, I think you have to really have conviction for the player. Theo, thoughts?
I think first and foremost, modern in general is a slippery slope. Like, I could collect Clemente modern cards right now, the numbered ones. That every year they come out with more Clemente modern cards, right? I could go broke buying those, and it's a never ending. Like I said, it's never ending, right? And I'm not anybody that does that. It's perfectly fine. I'm just saying you're really taxing your budget, in my opinion. And then, like you said, how are you a fan of that player, and then when they're traded, you're not like. There should be a tattoo rule. If you're not willing to get a tattoo of that player on your arm, you probably shouldn't be spending a lot of money on a player like that. If you're gonna just get rid of your collection. I know Mike Moynihan had a huge. I think it was Josh Hamilton. Don't quote me on that. Mike had a Texas Ranger player that he was collecting all the modern cards. It wasn't the fact that the player got traded. It was the fact he just got frustrated with the modern hobby, and he just could never get all the cards, right? So
yeah, I like that you brought up the modern Clemente cards, because I was saying earlier that, collecting vintage Clemente, you're going to run out of cards eventually, but maybe you do expand the scope to modern if you so choose. And there are some beautiful modern day Clemente cards, among others. There really are, some in the 52 tops themed superfractors, or just not, like, whatever, red theme, whatever it might be. There are some really beautiful modern cards of long retired players. So as far as player collecting goes, yeah, I think do it if you're going to be able to follow that player to his next team. When I was Timo Solani, played for the Winnipeg Jets for like 3 years and then got traded. I cried, literally heartbroken when he was traded away in 1995, I think it was. I remember the moment, just like I remember where I was on 9/11. I remember that moment, and I'm not comparing those two. I just remember both in my head. But now I collect him on any team because he's my all-time favorite professional athlete. So if you can identify a player and collect them, even if they get traded, by all means do it. Like, imagine being a huge Mavs fan collecting Luka. Now you are heartbroken, and you probably had to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to build that collection, because where cards are, and now you're devastated. Do you become a Lakers fan? That's an option. Maybe you're so mad at the Mavericks, maybe you become a Lakers fan. If you weren't a huge diehard Mavs fan to start with, if Luka made you a Mavs fan. So I always throw caution to people who start a player PC because they just want a player PC. Theo, back to the message board days, I remember seeing people post up threads saying, I want to start a new player PC. Any advice who I should collect? And I would just be like,
That
are
is the
you
wrong
serious?
That is
That's
the wrong
how you're
person
gonna
to do it. Yeah.
That's how you're gonna decide who
That's-
to collect? You're gonna put it out to committee? Are you serious? Like,
Yeah.
what do you think?
And the other trail I want to go down is the set collector, right? The set collector has to buy cards that a lot of times they're buying them to check off a list. I'm not saying every set collector, but if you're a player collector, sometimes a player has so many cards you really could never complete the list. So you can actually refine yourself where you can go, I don't really like these 10 cards of this player. This is my list. But when you're a set collector or a Hall of Fame collector, rookie Hall of Fame card collector, you're almost put into that box where it's like, I have to finish this list. I can't leave out 5 cards, right? That's just my thoughts on it, though.
Oh no, 100%. I grew up a set collector in the 1980s. All I wanted to do was complete the set: 87 Fleer baseball, 82 O-Pee-Chee hockey, 85 Topps football. I was putting those sets together as a kid, buying packs of gum, and all I cared about was completing the set. That's what mattered. I would trade away the best, my doubles of the best cards or the best players to get the card I needed, even if it was like a common nobody sort of thing, or less popular. As Dan says, there's no such thing as a common. So let's be a little bit nicer to some of these players and say, a card that I just needed to fill in my set, I would trade anything away for them because that's what I wanted. But nowadays, Theo, I'm much more selective. I do not collect sets anymore. I will customize a checklist for myself and basically, edit out 80% of it and just collect the players I want. I'm not a prisoner to a checklist anymore. I have no interest in collecting cards of players that are meaningless, not meaningless is a harsh word, but that are not meaningful to me in my life. So I'm not going to go after them anymore. But I was that way before, so I understand why people do it. And I have nothing against it, just not for me.
Well, I know you love that NHL relic set. Is that an exception, or are there some of those relics that you wouldn't get because you don't like the player?
Which one? You mean the ones like in this showcase here?
I've seen you do some IG posts where you show some of the patches. Like one was you were showing a fake Penguins patch the other day, and I believe that's one of the sets you love.
Yeah, so that was from I used to collect that set, and I used to collect the set, Theo. What have I done? Broke it up and kept my 4 or 5 favorite cards. I don't need the set anymore. I don't need to be buying Matt Molson cards for $18. I mean, hey, why not? But I don't need to take up room in my, I have precious space to allocate to cards. I don't need boxes and boxes of players I don't collect. Now, there are a couple sets where I do still do that. So I'm not completely over that, but I say I'm not a prisoner to a checklist. There's one set left where I need 9 cards and I will buy whoever, but that's it. 2014-15 masterpieces hockey patch cards. That's it. But even cup base patch parallels, I have 450 of these cards from all the years. I just got number 450 in the mail last week. I'm not buying any and every card anymore that's on the checklist. So I'm really moving away from that. And yeah, that's where I'm going with things as far as set collecting goes. So I think set collecting is something that is still going strong. Every year, people want flagship Topps, Prism basketball, Upper Deck flagship for hockey, filling in those 9 pocket sheet binders. Like that is the hobby for so many people. Not for me anymore, but for so many people. And I love that that's how people love to collect still. So go ahead, and then we'll hear from Josh on all this.
Yeah. I did want to mention one of the pushbacks in the chat was if you're a player collector, you're missing the history of the game. And I think you did bring that up, which you did talk about it. But I'd also say if you collect a player like Clemente, you're seeing the history of baseball cards during a time frame that you're digging deeper in the types of cards you're looking at than the surface level somebody who just collects Topps cards would look at. You're getting Cons cards, you're getting Venezuelan cards, O-Pee-Chees, bazookas. I can name a bunch of different sets that you probably wouldn't collect if you just had surface level. I'm looking for the history of baseball, right? So I love that aspect of being able to to say, hey, in 1968, these were all the food issue and cards that were released that year.
Yeah. Yeah. The only pushback there for me, and this is only for me because right now, Theo, like I said earlier, I am hyper focused on several different things. One of them, like my favorite genre of the hobby is pre-war baseball. Like I can't get enough of this stuff. They
said it's a drug. Once you start it, you're in trouble.
I mean, I've been collecting it for 20 years, but right now, and also now that I've really opened up to this, what we're calling like flight collecting, it's one step past type collecting, where you're maybe looking for 3 or 4 or 5 cards from a set, like a flight of beers, a sample, right? I want more and more. I want 4 cards to put together from 48 Leaf and 49 Bowman and 33 Gaudy and all these wonderful. I want 4. I like pairing cards, tripling cards, or quadding cards together. I love that. So yeah, as far as being a Clemente collector, you are missing out on what I believe are some of the most beautiful, historical, important cards in the history of the hobby. What do you think?
I get your point there. I do. And I probably own just a handful of pre-war cards, and I get your point. My pushback is those can be expensive, and once again, there's some expensive Clemente cards that I can't afford right now. So if I nickel and dime my budget down with pre-war cards, and I'm not getting cards of the GOAT of all goats, in my opinion, then it's a problem for me. But I feel really bad. I think Josh hasn't talked for about 25 minutes. And we need to let the guy go.
Well, let's go to Josh. Josh, you got some things twirling in your mind. Let's hear it.
It's okay. I love hearing you talk, Theo. Well, when you say pre-war, which war? Because 48 Leaf and 51 Bowman are after World War II. So
I'm thinking pre-52 tops, pre-50 Bowman, let's say.
Pre-war baseball is the best, especially 19th century baseball. You got great black and white photographies, the history of baseball, how it started. You've got so many great oddball regional sets that they're super expensive. You can't afford any of them, but they're really cool. Like N167s, N172s. You got G&B gum. You got Hess oil. It's the coolest stuff, I think. It's old black and white photos. But to what Theo said, and he's 100% correct, that you collect Clemente through the years. You see the history of baseball cards. He spans the 50s and 60s. You can see how cards have changed throughout that time, from drawings to photography to very intricate or detailed stats on the back. And it's fantastic. And plain collecting allows you to have that type collecting where you can get different sets. And the regionals are the best, like the oddball regionals from the 50s and 60s, when there wasn't eBay or the internet, and you really were regulated to where you lived to get cards. Those are great. Cons Wieners are awesome. It's great stuff. Do you have one?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Let's see. Show everybody, because it's a great looking card. It's fantastic.
And I got one over here that I just picked up that I haven't shown yet on my channel.
Sure, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, these were in packages of hot dogs in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and just regional releases. And this one here has authentic hot dog juice on the back. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, I love the oddball
good jokes about that.
I love the
Very
oddball
cool
stuff. It's the best.
It is
baseball cards. It's fantastic.
Really quick, Rich Barone says, "What's up, my brother?" And I bring Rich Barone on because he was a player collector. Jonathan Tavares for the New York Islanders. He didn't get traded. He kind of signed in free agency with Toronto and left the Islanders with nothing for him. And now he does not want any Jonathan Tavares cards, so they're all for sale. And that's disappointing when you collect a guy who is currently in the league. Now, one more thing I said like pre-1950 Bowman, but 1951 Bowman is one of my favorite sets. Absolutely love that set, and I have 3 cards from it, and I want 2 more right now, 1 for sure. So yeah, I just love that stuff. But not being a player collector in baseball allows me to collect a lot of players that I respect and like to collect and like to learn about. And so, yeah, have you ever considered, Theo, adding a second player to your player collecting resume?
Yeah, actually, I'm a big Dick Groat fan because when I was growing up, Dick Groat was actually the basketball announcer for Pitt, and that was my favorite team to watch. So I learned about him when he was an announcer, and then I learned about him through watching old clips of him, and he was one of the best shortstops of his time. So I have a pretty nice Groat collection, and he spans a little bit earlier 50s, and he won MVP in 1960. So he has some cards and some sets that Clemente wasn't actually in. So it actually allows me to get some different types of cards there, which is kind of cool. And I've also started working on Stan Musial because his sister-in-law went to our church, and she had a connection with my father-in-law, and long story short, though, I did some research on him and just hearing about how great of a person he was, and he was actually a local hometown hero. He grew up 20 minutes from me, so started working on Stan Musial. But like I said, it's just a little bit of money on those guys. Probably 98% of my money has been spent on Clemente. So,
well, I do, man. Listen, I have no issue with you collecting how you collect. If it's rewarding for you, if anybody's going to judge you or say you're doing it wrong, they are wrong. The hobby is wonderful because there's an infinite amount of ways that you can approach it and you can collect in it. And that's one of the most exciting things. And as a open-minded collector, like, people can tell me that they collect a certain way, and I might be like, whoa, whoo, see, like epiphany. I'm gonna start to collect like you a little bit. I'm not gonna stop collecting how I collect, but I may add another focus to my multi-focused approach. So, okay, cool. Let's go to some comments. Ben Burrows from Collect is in the back. Ben, we're gonna bring you on shortly, a couple minutes late, but we'll bring you on. We'll keep you late too, buddy. So, Double D Vintage says, type collecting is my favorite way to collect now that I know what it is. Well, Dylan, flight collecting is even better. It's even better because you can pair your cards together. So I'm not saying don't type collect, but flight collecting is just like Dan introduced the term of own appeal. Joe came up with the name flight collecting after I was explaining how I'm approaching things a couple weeks ago. Hanif T says, what's your thoughts on team collecting? I think it's a wonderful approach because it's your team. And that way, when a player leaves, you don't care. You can keep those cards because that player played for your team and are part of its history. 3D 80s Kid says, player collecting could work if you've got multiple players covering different eras. Otherwise, you are stuck in a 2-decade range. And if you're okay with that, though, budget-wise, interest-wise, or just because you're okay with it, that's okay too. It works for Theo. So yeah. Mookie says, I'm a player collector, team collector, set collector, and pinhole collector, and each of those areas overlap in a Venn diagram. I've noticed that. It's nice when you collect different ways and you can pair your cards together, and they can, one card in this group or flight can also belong in this group or flight over there. Mookie says, Theo's a specialist, like a place kicker. Rugs Capital says, I only started watching you, Jeremy, because of the Howard Chuck over your head. That's this one right here, Dale Howard Chuck's rookie card. Always a good watch. Thank you, Rugs Capital. He goes on to say, Abdi Cards and Joe Daly was the spot. I mean, I grew up in the 80s going downtown Winnipeg to Abdi Cards and hanging out with Barry and Dale there every Saturday afternoon. So we probably saw each other there, Rugs Capital. Rangers PC says, modern grading is so stupid. Sorry, I said it. All right. Just an off-topic comment. Vintage Hockey Flips says a collector buys for his PC, a flipper buys to sell for short-term profit, and a hybrid collector sells you support to support his and to upgrade his collection. I think many people are in that hybrid on that collector investor spectrum. Ziggy No, cheers, gents. Great stuff. Thank you. Jordan Riker says, he's a Mavs fan and was a Luka fan, says, no, I can't become a Lakers fan because he didn't become a Mavs fan because of Luka. He became a Luka fan because he's a Mavs fan. I get it. Lonely Basement says, quick save on the 9/11 reference. Well, I know when I need to quickly save myself because I know how people can respond to some things when they don't really understand the intention in your head because, hey, we're not in each other's heads. 3D80s Kid says, hi, my name is John and I'm a pre-war addict. I love it, John. Vintage Oddball says, I recommend collecting a player you can afford. Some players can crush your budget from the start. Definitely good advice. Sean from Victory Investment says, pre-war baseball for the win. Lonely Basement says, junk wax addicts get no respect. And back to Sean, Victory Investments, guys. Check out his new book. It just came out on Amazon, Chasing.
Can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I couldn't hear Jeremy there.
Still can't.
Yeah.
It's okay. We don't need him. What? I'm just kidding.
Jeremy, we could talk if you want. We could talk about SGC while you're trying to get everything figured out here.
Sure, let's do it.
No, Jeremy, we can't hear you.
No.
All
right.
Let's get
what about SGC?
Let's get the chat stirred up here.
Okay, I'm back.
Here he is.
Okay, there he is.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. That's crazy. You couldn't hear me reading any of those comments?
No.
No.
You guys got to tell me sooner.
Well, I could when I talked, it didn't it didn't work either for some reason. But when you held up the book, that's where I couldn't hear you anymore. So.
Oh, you heard me up until the book.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, guys, Chasing Jackie Robinson by Sean of Victory Investments just wrote the book, and I was just saying, I'll say it again, that he said I might be the first person in the world to receive it. The book was actually manufactured in Alberta, where I live, which is pretty crazy. Amazon must have printing facilities everywhere, but check it out, guys. Wonderful book. I read it to my daughter last night. She loved it. Chasing Jackie Robinson. I'm going to read it to my son tomorrow, and check it out on Amazon. Support Sean and his wonderful new book in the hobby. Thank you, everybody, for letting me know. Sean himself says, as soon as I held up the book, I might have hit the little red button on the mic there because I wasn't muted. Anyway, we are back. Thank you, everybody, for letting me. Okay, so let's do this now, guys. Let's bring Ben Burrows from Collect on as well. And Theo, we will talk about the SGC thing that we weren't going to talk about whether they're going to close it down. We were going to talk about what would happen if Nat and Collectors did shutter SGC. Ben Burrows, you want to join us for this one? All right. Guys, please welcome Ben Burrows from Collect back to the show. Ben, welcome. Say hi to the fellas.
Hey, guys. How you doing? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
We gotcha. We gotcha. So welcome. We'll bring you in because you're in the back room anyway. We got a couple topics with you, but let's talk about this. So Theo, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts? What would happen to the legacy of SGC cards, their values? And if people have talked this a lot on the YouTube hobby waves lately, so we'll keep this quick, but what are your thoughts, Theo?
Yeah, and like you said, nobody wants to beat a dead horse on this, but the recent news that when Peter went on Leighton's channel, and not Peter, Nat Turner went on Leighton's channel and said that they're moving graders from SGC to PSA. My big concern is consistency of grading there, and the lead times are already bad compared to the standard that they held before, right? So I have a major concern that they're killing the grading company without actually killing it. So, how long until collectors start noticing consistency issues and the bad lead times and they start looking for somewhere else to grade? But let's just do the hypothetical and say they just shut it normal and they don't let it be a shell of itself, like I think is going to happen. I definitely think cards graded in SGC holders will definitely go down if the company's closed. So
I agree with that. I think if they were to close down the company and take all those graders, move them to PSA and just the SGC brand, you could not submit to them anymore. I think that does hurt the legacy cards out there, but not a ton because they were so well respected during their existence. They are well respected. They do have, I believe, the best vintage graders out there. So
Right.
I don't know that it's going to totally hurt it. That I don't know. Listen, I don't think it's going to kill it, but it will. I think it will impact the values. Now, is that 0.5%, 5%, 10%, 25%? I don't think it's any more than any of those than 25%. But hey, I'm just throwing numbers out there. I have no idea for sure, but I do think that it would impact it. And then I think that people would end up looking for opportunities to buy really nice cards in SGC holders to cross them over to PSA. So I think that's where it would go.
I think one part, Jeremy, that's a big part to me is you're every day we get more people into the hobby, and they tend to pick a grading company and run with it because they want stuff to match. Not everybody's that way, but some people like everything to match. So when you have a company leave, then basically, to me, you have that situation where the demand lessens and lessens and lessens over time for the people that really do like to have the same looking holders in their display cases. But that's my thought on that too.
No, Theo, that's my thought as well. I like uniformity in my collection. My vintage cards are almost all PSA, a few SGCs, and if I didn't have to, I just don't want to pay to move them over. So I'm probably not gonna, but I wish they were in PSA slabs because it just presents nicer. I like the uniformity. So Ben, you just joined us. You want to share your thoughts on this line of discussion, and then we'll hear from you, Josh, after Ben.
Sure. I mean, I'm almost a little skeptical of whether or not prices will shift that much because I think SGC has had such a passionate group of submitters for a long time that I could almost see some of those people forcing prices to go up because their population is not gonna change at all, right? And then, like Theo said, you want uniformity within your collection. So now, all of a sudden, if you want SGC graded cards in your collection, you're not creating more. You're not adding to that population. It is what it is. It's not changing. I guess it technically could go down if people are, cracking and crossing over to something else. But I could see a very real reality where some of the ultra high end stuff or even the mid end stuff all of a sudden skyrockets in price because people are fighting over very specific holders, right?
So there could be opposing forces here. I didn't really think of that yet, but you say it and that's like a light bulb goes off for me. Yeah. There's nothing new coming into the population at that point. So what exists, it's now scarcer. It's rarer. There's more demand for it, more competition for it. So that could push prices up a bit. But then the opposing force is that some people are going to say, well, listen, I just only want PSA now, so I'm not going to bother looking for those. And the ones I have, I'm going to cross over anyway, which also impacts the population of SGC and puts even more upward pressure on those that remain because you also have overstated population reports, but the cards just don't appear. So I think there could be some opposing forces here. I don't know which one wins out, which one's stronger. And hopefully we don't have to find that out. So, but good. I like those comments, Ben. Makes sense to me. Josh, you want to jump in and share your thoughts?
I have no idea what's going on here. When did PSA buy SGC?
Come on.
I'm 100% serious. I don't follow any stuff. When did that happen? I'm not joking. Like when did that happen?
Over a year ago. About it. Yeah.
I didn't even know that. All right. So then if you have an SGC card and it turns out that it's fake, does PSA's warranty cover that? Because if they're owned by PSA, that should cover it.
No, it shouldn't because PSA's guarantee is for PSA slabs. It's not for it's just another subsidiary of collectors.
Yeah, but they own the company.
But collectors owns PSA and SGC. So collectors would close SGC, not PSA. But yeah, I'm not sure how you would go after collectors for that situation. I don't think that would really apply. But I hear what you're saying, John. I think a lot of people would have that same understanding, to be honest. So we broke news tonight. So I want to talk on Ben's point real quick. I see where he's coming from, being a player collector and whatnot. I do think, though, there's going to be a big difference between more common cards and more scarce cards. So in my opinion, like a 68 Clemente, let's say, in an SGC holder, there's probably, 500 to 1,000 of those. So in my opinion, that would be more of a chance to go down if the company closed. But let's just say 68 Clemente Venezuelan, there's 48 graded. So now if you love having this slab and you trust you, I mean, you love having SGC and you love the slab, now to me that might actually be the opposite effect, like you're saying. So I think there might be some give and take depending on how common the card is. But that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, appreciate that. All right, let's do a couple of comments here. First of all, John 3D 80s Kid says, on Leighton's show, Nat used very specific wording. He's not ending the brand. He did not say the separate company will remain. It's already being killed as a company with the current moves. Is it killed? So I think what John is saying is that maybe PSA absorbs the SGC brand as another service, a service offering under PSA versus versus killing the brand altogether. So they could actually close down the corporate entity and just sell the, transfer the brand, the SGC brand, to being a PSA offering. That's kind of a very nuanced way to look at it. But John, I think, was really looking at as Josh said earlier, words have meaning, and John might have picked up on something there that nobody else really did, or at least I didn't pick up on. So that said, if the brand continues, I think we're still where we are. No one's going to care who owns the brand, I don't think. Personally, anyone have any other thoughts on that? No.
So I'll hop in really quick. So I interviewed Peter way back when this first happened, and the interesting aspect that he explained to me was that he didn't think, at the time, and of course, people aren't going to be super insightful when these things first happen. But the interesting piece of information that he explained to me was when they first started this acquisition, the key components were going to be PSA was going to help provide technology to SGC to help them modernize and be able to grade faster. SGC was going to provide resources in terms of like vintage knowledge to help bolster what PSA was already doing. But the interesting thing that he said that I took away, probably the most important thing, was initially, obviously things change. There was no interest in combining the companies because the percentage of cards that they grade that are overlapped is really, really small in reality. Like the cards that people are holding with SGC outside of, the Grail cards, the Keystone cards in people's collections, there's very little overlap. It's a lot of the random stuff from, some of the old pre-war stuff that you love so much, Jeremy. That stuff is largely going to SGC, not as much to PSA. And so at the time, they were like, we're not cannibalizing each other at all. We're grading for two completely different user bases. There's not a lot of reason for us to combine at the time. Now, of course, this was like a year ago, but that's what I took. That was the interesting thing that I took away from the conversation.
I appreciate it. That doesn't make sense to me. Like I just see so many pre-war cards in PSA holders, more than I do SGC. And sorry, Theo, I'll let you get in there one second. I look at my list of like really important cards here. This was some part of my research when I did my Joe Jackson. And I've got the PSA populations and the SGC populations. 1948 Leaf Jackie Robinson, 1867 PSA, 673 SGC. Topps Mickey Mantle, 1952, 2048 PSA, 681 SGC. Now, of course, that's over 35 years of grading. So it doesn't, I don't have just the last 5 years, and maybe it's a whole different ratio there. But hear what you're saying. Appreciate the thoughts. But I know if I was getting one of those cards graded now, it would go to PSA hands down. But I also don't like the SGC holder. That's a big part of me. Theo, what did you want to jump in with?
Well, he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. Hey, we're grading different cards, right? We're grading different cards, so it's a different. Okay, but now they're moving graders from SGC to PSA. They're not saying they're moving them to train PSA employees. They're moving them to grade the PSA standard, he said, right? So to me, that's two different things. If they were going over there to train them, okay, that's fine. if you ever saw any videos of SGC's grading room, like that happened a couple years ago before this all happened, there's not a lot of graders. So now you're taking, maybe they have 10, 12 graders in the room and you're taking 3 away. That's huge. That's a lot of knowledge there in cards that PSA is claiming they're not grading, right? You're taking all that knowledge base out of that room for no reason, because they said they don't need to grade those type of cards, right? So
that is a bit of both sides of the mouth. Let's do a couple of quick comments here. Double D Dylan says, I do not think for a chance that it would affect the value on the vintage SGC cards. Stuke said the change will come as new collectors come into the hobby over time, similar to GAI. And also just think about Beckett. Beckett's reputation started to tank and the cards went down. If a company leaves, does the reputation diminish as well? I don't know. It's an interesting question. Mookie says, Ben, has Collect done any reporting on what is happening to SGC? Where is Peter? Ben, any follow-up there?
So I feel bad because when I first interviewed Peter about this like a year ago, I had just joined Collect. And so my reporting that I originally did sort of had to stay the intellectual property of my previous outlet. And we were never able to get something set back up, but it's something that we have asked about and, haven't gotten a legitimate answer. But, now that additional information has come out recently, it's definitely worth texting Peter to see what's up.
Where are you at? Where are you at, Peter? Okay. Mookie said SGC has gotten 3 times slower since collectors bought them. Ben, have you followed up? Well, we just did that. Thank you, Mookie. And John says, as someone who has analyzed a lot of pop reports for pre-war sets, most PSA pops are way higher for the major sets. For rarer issues, they are closer to 50-50 for most. Interesting tidbit, John. Appreciate that. I don't know what to make of it, but very interesting. Very interesting. Theo, any kind of final thoughts on the SGC topic?
Yes. The other point I want to make is however long it was, a year ago, Peter said that PSA was going to bring new technology to SGC, and if they have, we haven't seen it. And like some of the other commenters made, the lead times are up. So what they have new technology, but it's not helping them move the lead times down. It doesn't really add up because they're not getting more cards in. And then that brings me back to my point of SGC's been stagnant for the last year. They rolled out the app and they've done nothing with it. They've promised the registry for SGC over a year and a half ago. Nothing has happened with that, and PSA has a registry. So the sharing of technology hasn't seemed to happen yet, which is frustrating.
Yeah, at least not front facing where we can see it. They could be doing some things behind the scenes in terms of processing, moving cards through the system, but nothing that we are able to see. Rock Latex here says, talking about Peter, do the kids today understand the milk carton reference? I think people do. I think some people do, but I don't know about everybody, Rock Latex. All right, Theo, listen, it's been great having you, man. I'm glad we got to do this. I look forward to enjoying HobbyPalooza with you. I look forward to the Vintage Trade Night hosted by 4 Collectors. Check out the 4 Collectors YouTube channel, everybody. If you haven't, it's the number 4 and the word collectors if you haven't done that yet. And of course, Saturday night, national, at the overall National Trade Night, there will be the vintage section, again, hosted by 4 Collectors, of which Theo is a part of, along with, it's now 5 Guys. It's like you guys should change your name to 5 Guys and take on the 5 Guys burger logo as your own. That would be fun. But there you go. He's showing the card. So Theo, congrats on all of these hobby initiatives, bringing the community together. It's just awesome, man. So thank you for that. And it's been great having you guys. In the chat, I know you all wanted him. You got him, Theo, here Saturday night on Sports Cards Live. Theo, thank you so much. We're gonna let you go and bring Chris McGill on. So Theo, thanks, buddy.
Love everything you guys are doing. See you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, and that was Theo from the Clemente Collector YouTube channel. Ben, we're gonna bring Chris on, and we're gonna talk about a couple topics that you had, and you can stick around for the rest, or once we're done that, when it's me, when Chris is still till the end, but let's do it and bring Chris. Chris, you good? I love bringing them on when the thumbs are still up. Welcome back to the show, buddy.
I'm really ready when the 2 thumbs come up.
I know it. I know it. All right. Well, you're here now, and it's good to have you back, Chris, as always. Now, Ben, we had 2 topics really that we're going to talk about with you. So let's start with it. Let's hold the one that's kind of gives me chuckles right now for after. But you mentioned to me that now listen, Fanatics Fest is 1 or 2 weeks ago already. There's been tons of content on it, tons of thoughts, and I've seen a couple thumbnails in the last couple of days talking about a war between Fanatics Fest and the National. I just don't see it that way. I think these are 2 completely different events, and they can both coexist with great success. So I don't see it as anything like that. But we're going to talk one topic of Fanatics Fest. Ben, you mentioned that there's an interesting nugget that I don't know what it is, but I think it might be new to think about. So please introduce it.
Oh, so the interesting thing that I wrote stories on Monday and Tuesday just to follow up on Fanatics Fest. And the interesting thing that I actually didn't get to report on Tuesday is every year they talk about making the show bigger and better. Well, it's actually so previously these first 2 shows, the way that I understand it, it's only taken up like 85% of the Javits Center. And so next year, I believe it's going to take up 100% of the Javits Center. And so from a scale perspective, I can't remember exactly what the square footage is, but to give people perspective, I think the Javits Center is like 3.3 million square feet. Ooh. And I think the Stevens Center in Chicago is like 800,000 or something like that. So just from like a scale standpoint, I don't think people really grasp how large Fanatics Fest has gotten. And I'm under the impression that that's their biggest expense too. Like their number one expense every single year is just renting the space. It's not the autograph fees. It's for them, it's legitimately just renting out the Javits Center for 3 days. And so they're expanding from 85% to 100%. And, for next year, it should be 3 million square feet, which what they fill it with, who knows? But I think it's grown for me faster than expected, significantly faster.
And that's the thing, Ben, is what are they going to fill it with? Because you say, or we know, okay, Javits is 3 million square feet, let's say. Stevens Center, Chicago National venue is 800,000, let's say, or whatever it is exactly. Now, the Fanatics Fest is not just there is a card show, but it's not the whole Fanatics Fest. It's not called the Fanatics Fest Collectors Convention. It's called Fanatics Fest. The card show is a component of it. So the question that I have is, what is the square footage of the card show versus the National, just so that you can in your mind compare it if you've been to the National in Chicago and haven't been to Fanatics Fest at Javits Center in New York. Now, when I was at Fanatics Fest last year, I didn't go this year. I thought the card show was awesome, and I believe it was bigger this year than last year. But it still wasn't it wasn't nearly as big as the National. It was was it as big as the Dallas show, which I've never been to? Was it bigger than the Burbank show, which I have been to in its various locations? I don't know, but it's definitely the Fanatics Fest is not a card show. It is a card show. Like 1 million of those square feet might just be NHL, NFL, MLB, NBA, and WWE, or 3 of them. That might be a third of the whole floor space. So those are kind of my thoughts on what you're bringing. I think what you're bringing is very important. I like that it's growing. I like that I heard Ruben say that this is not a money-making venture. This is a marketing expense for them. And I think that's reasonable and realistic. So those are some of my thoughts.
They've lost a ton of money so far. I think Ruben said last year they lost $15 million collectively on it. I'd sort of expect that number to be possibly marginally better this year. But, I've talked to Lance Fensterman, who is the CEO for Fanatics Events, several times, and he has sort of given me the impression that they're probably not going to make money from Fanatics Fest for like 3 or 5 years. They're playing the long game. They accept that they're going to have to eat tens of millions of dollars on this thing before they get it to where it's actually profitable every single year. But in the meantime, I don't think they really care. That's just part of the process.
So if they lost 15 million last year. Let's say they lost 10 million this year. I'm making these up completely. My question is, what percent of their annual marketing budget is that amount of money? And then you have to remember, hobbyists, Fanatics is more than just sports cards and tops. They are apparel. They are licensed apparel. They are supplying the leagues with the jersey the players are wearing. So that marketing budget is the benefits that they are receiving is not just for their card business. I don't think even close. I don't know what percentage of their revenues are the collectibles companies. They have several collectibles. Fanatics Live, Fanatics Collect, Tops. What percent of the marketing budget are those losses? I'm guessing it's not very big. I'm like, I don't know. Do you know? Do you have a gut feel for that, Ben? And then let's get Chris and Josh to pipe in on this topic.
I think it's relatively small when you add it up to everything that goes into it, especially because now we're seeing them shoot commercials, right? You know, they're shooting commercials with Tom Brady. You know, they're shooting commercials. What was the last one? Had like David Ortiz in it, and they always have all of these cameos. Those guys have appearance fees that it costs tons of money to shoot those commercials. I've sat in on one. I sat in on the original commercial that they did with Ronald Acuna Jr. was the cover of Top Series 1 2 years ago, I think, something like that. That was here in Atlanta, so I went and watched that. They have like pros that do it. I think the guy that shoots those commercials used to shoot the commercials for like Mattel toys and stuff, and now he's come over to Fanatics. Those things cost a ton of money to produce. It costs a ton of money to actually air them. You know, even if it's just for a few days around the release window. All things considered, Fanatics is spending hundreds of millions of dollars, more than likely, on marketing fees every single year. So them eating $10 million for an event that maybe it was coordinated, maybe it wasn't, where like Kevin Durant finds out he gets traded on the stage. How much money? My boss Darren is one of the sickos for coming up. Like that's worth like $4 million in advertising fees. I don't know how he comes up with it. Who knows? But that I think that's almost like it's not a rounding error for them, but $10 million for all the exposure that they got for 3 days. I don't think they care at all. I think it's minuscule compared to the whole thing.
I think it's money well spent by them because, again, they are more than just the sports collectibles business. Josh Adams, were you at Fanatics Fest last year or this year? Absolutely not. I came to New York Sunday night, and that was kind of by design. It does not look like it's for me, but it looks, I don't know. I really don't want to hang out with Kevin Durant and Tom Brady. I just want to see them throw throw footballs and basketballs. I don't need to talk to them. I could watch them from a distance, but I can see how it could have an appeal to a lot of people, and I'm definitely a weirdo. So no, but it looks cool. And there's so many sports fans that want those experiences, right. and they prove that they want that. So, and Michael Rubin, I don't think he's a dummy. I just don't think he's a dummy at all. I think he knows what he's doing, and that speaks to the ROI on that expenditure that you cannot directly trace back to it, but there is that. Yeah, he's not flushing $10 million down the toilet just for the heck of it. So right, I think so too. Chris, let's get your thoughts on all this.
Yeah, I have a million directions I could go on this, but I'll pick one, and then hopefully it'll be interesting on some level. So, Jeremy, you obviously know this. We connected over Michael Jordan collecting. Josh, that's how you and I know each other as well. And I remember a time collecting Michael Jordan not that long ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, when all the card shows were a fraction of what they are today. The market was a fraction of what it is today, both price-wise and in terms of volume. There were 4 hobby podcasts. I mean, I remember when this place was much, much, much smaller. And people would often throw out the idea, what if Michael Jordan was at a card show, walking down the aisles? Like that was an idea that people would throw around that got them excited. Like, man, how big would that be for the hobby and stuff? Well, Fanatics Fest didn't have Michael Jordan, but it had pretty much everybody else. It had Tom Brady, it had LeBron, it had the incredible Kevin Durant moments that I saw that moment showing up in all of my different algorithms and feeds, sports card related and not sports card related. That was NBA news. That was, that was a real moment. I can see Darren Ravel's calculation on that, how he priced that, because that was huge exposure for Fanatics Fest. I just think that there's some concept here that we're going to make all of the Fanatics brands and businesses look as cool as possible. And we're going to put on this beautiful show and this beautiful structure, and all the celebrities are going to be there, and security is going to be out in volume and in large quantity. And we're just going to have team owners, on stage participating in breaks, and like moments happen, like the Jaden Daniels Black Finite card being priced by Mike Mahan on the spot, and then the Commanders owner saying, okay, that sounds good to me, let's go. So I just think that that there's such there was a real concerted effort to just make the entire thing look cool and appealing and appetizing and star-studded and celebrity laden. And I think it worked for better or worse. That's not everybody's cup of tea. I'm with Josh. That's not my cup of tea either. But I can't say it didn't work.
No, yeah, for sure. I think my biggest content themed sort of thought right now is, again, it comes back to people pitting the National against Fanatics Fest. And I think that's like, that's like pitting a great steakhouse against a great Chinese food restaurant. Like they're two different things. They are literally, Fanatics Fest is not a card show. It includes one. While the National is a card show, it's the industry mecca. PSA did not set up at Fanatics Fest. Now, I don't know why exactly. I have my thoughts, but I don't know exactly. And those are simply around the cost to do it. I know that for vendors, a booth at the National, I think, is $1,000, or a table. What is it, Josh?
It's $1,500 for a single booth, and then about $3,000 for a double booth. So, and
what do Ben? Do you know, or Chris? Does anyone know? I think they were like were they $4,000 or $5,000 at Fanatics Fest? Anybody?
I think they were about I asked a couple people, and they said they paid about $1,000 per table, but most people had multiple tables, so it would be like 4 or 5.
Okay. So I don't know. Okay. Mr. Minty says $3,000. So twice the price for a booth, let's say, at Fanatics Fest versus the National. And then New York is parking access, getting there. The airport isn't right there like it is at many places where the National, well, at Chicago anyway. So I just don't think that these are, people need to talk about things. So they're going to pit these two events against each other. But I don't think that the impact that Fanatics Fest is going to have on the National is going to be that big. Yeah, fewer people. There will be some people who don't go to the National because they went to Fanatics Fest. But let me tell you, there's enough people that are going to go. I don't think the National is going to feel it. And then as far as vendors, the National's got a backup list, the length from me here in Canada to Josh down in Chicago. So they're going to have no problem filling those booths and tables, I don't think, at all. So I don't think what do you think, Ben? Do you think that there's really an impact one on the other?
No, I think they're completely different events. Like, and it's almost like Fanatics Fest is like this experience more than anything. And then the National is a legitimate card show. And truthfully, probably 70 or 80% of Fanatics Fest is not for me. Like I thought the card show was interesting. I thought some of the panels were interesting, but I'm 34. I'm not trying to break my legs doing the 40-yard dash. Like, my feet are already hurting. My back already sucks. Like I don't want to die in the middle of this thing. They've got these Disney lines, and it gets crazy. But what I will say is that I asked a lot of people there. I asked a lot of the vendors what the key differences were, and they were like, "Well, the National is the biggest card show. It's for the card sickos, right? I show up. I have key objectives. I go there with usually for me, it's vintage cards that I want to trade into better copies. I think that's what a lot of people do. They go to the National Convention with either key objectives or they want to sit and go through dollar bins for 4 straight days. Fanatics
Or
Fest,
so I was just say, or see all their friends there too, you
the
know?
social aspect, yeah, for sure.
Right. Right.
For sure.
Like I'm actually really, now that I'm thinking about it more, guys, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, I actually really like the Fanatics Fest is doing what it's doing, because now the National doesn't have to. The National can stay what it is. I heard Michael Rubin say that, you know, I think he said, you know, I went to a card show, they called it the National, and it's antiquated. That's what we want the National to be, is antiquated. You know, you don't have to change much about it. You know, of course, we want cell phone service and we want air conditioning. We want bathrooms that you don't have to wait in line for. Those are kind of besides, they're all important. Don't get me wrong. But I want the National to be the largest card show in the world that me and all my card friends go to and congregate in and hang out in the evenings and do the extracurriculars. The fact that Fanatics Fest does what it does means that the National can stay true to what it is and what I think a lot of people want it to be. Thoughts on that? Ben, quick, we'll start with you, then we'll go around the horn.
So I 100% think that they should continue to be separate things. I think the National, there's probably things that Fanatics Fest does really well that the National Convention should take as inspiration and, you know, sort of modernize in a specific way. But the key thing that I came away from, and I really want to get your guys' take on this, is the people that I spoke to at Fanatics Fest, they were like, this is something where I would take my family. I would take my kids here. And I think there's a ton of discussion about how do we get the next generation of collectors into the space. I know that a lot of hardcore card collectors think that, you know, they're going to take their 6-year-old son or something like that that's never collected before, and they think that they're going to love the National Convention. They're probably not. It's probably going to be terrible for them if they're not already into collecting. But Fanatics Fest, there's all that other, the crazy lights and sounds, the stuff that, you know, all those activities that I'm terrified of hurting myself on. The kids are going to love that. And then you can sort of introduce them to the cards. Yeah. And then they can go to a panel, and then they can go back to cards, and then they can eat, and then they can see Tom Brady do some weird thing. And, you know, maybe like Victor Wembanyama is somewhere and they get excited about it. And then they go back to cards, and all of the vendors that I talked to that were actually there, not just random people on social media that were just making stuff up. All of the vendors were like, I would take my family to this. I don't want to take them to the National Convention. Right. So I'm very curious what role it potentially could play. And I think there's great arguments too about, you know, like Fanatics Bet is there, and like the gaming stuff, whether or not that should be there, I think is like a fair critique for that. But I think, and I'm curious what you guys think on this, is like, I'm curious what role a Fanatics Fest plays into actually pushing a new generation of collectors in here in a different way than the National can.
I think it's important. I think it's a wonderful way to bring in new collectors, expose them to the hobby. And then I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, you know, card collector father goes with his wife and kids, says to the wife, here, stand in line with the boys. Well, they're going to wait to walk down the WWE runway or whatever. And he sneaks away, goes and dumps $8,000 at the card show for a couple of cards, doesn't tell the wife, comes back and says, all right, let's go do the WWE runway sort of thing, you know? So you get to kind of kill several birds with one stone. Everyone gets to have some fun, and he gets to go, you know, spend some money on some cards. But let's hear from the other guys. Josh, what do you think of all this?
I mean, you just described a family vacation at a casino at Las Vegas, but so, which kind of brings me into my lead in. Ben had a good point. You want to bring your family there, and it's a good way to get kids involved in the next generation of collecting and so forth. My only problem is that Fanatics, I think, pushes a gambling type of hobby experience more than I think it should be for a young kid, in terms of, you know, there's a new card, like the Cooper Flag card that just came out, the auto from the draft, stuff like that. I just think is not really collecting. It's, you know, gambling. And I just don't think it's, I don't know, maybe I'm old school. I just think that's not really collecting. But you do want to, because kids want to go and like run down the WWE aisle or watch Victor Wembanyama shoot a basketball. That's cool. That might get him hooked up. So I can see the pros and cons to it. Jeremy, you're muted again.
Chris, we'll go to you in one sec. But before we do, we're going to go to your partner, Christina. Says, hey, not all the wives are okay with that, Jeremy. Some of us want to look at cards too. Well, Christina, you can tell Chris to wait in line with the kids, and you can go dump money on a card, and I'm sure you would love to do that. Okay, Chris, your thoughts on all this, please.
Yeah, I thought Ben made a great point there about, it can become something more than a zero-sum game if Fanatics Fest is minting future national attendees. Maybe we could put it that way. But I wanted to give a take just from my point of view as a collector, just only having my collector hat on, and sort of explaining quickly my thought process behind which shows I've attended and which ones I haven't. And so last year I went to the National and to Fanatics Fest, enjoyed my time at both, purchased cards at both. I love going to New York in particular. So it was great on a lot of levels. But this year, especially with the events sort of being just a month apart, it was a really tough call. But I decided not to go to Fanatics Fest, and I decided to go to the National for this year. And certainly missed out on some fun looking stuff at Fanatics Fest. But the question that I ask, and as a card show attendee, this is really the only thing that ultimately matters to me outside of the opportunity to see friends and the whole social side, but just with the collector hat on, not the social hat, not the hobby industry hat, just as a collector. I want to go to the show that's going to give me the best chance to find the needle in a haystack card that I'm looking for. That's the main part of my calculus. Is, hey, like, I've got these specific cards that I really want to find. Where's my best chance of finding them? And without a doubt, that's the National. And until Fanatics Fest or other shows too create the branding or the very real possibility that those become needle in a haystack card shows as well, I'm probably, my main reasons for going to them will be more so because of the industry side of things, or because of, I'm meeting friends there or something like that, which are great reasons to go to card shows too. But the thing that really fires me up and gets me excited to go is that needle in a haystack element as well. And so that was the tiebreaker in a certain sense this year, was that I feel like that can happen at the National, and just it really can't happen at any other show. So if Fanatics Fest can get to that point where, like, I feel like I can find that needle in a haystack card at one of the dealer booths there, that changes the calculus completely for me.
All right, good stuff. Thanks for that, Chris. Let's go to some comments, guys. Dan's Vintage, we'll do that one after, Dan. Here, Dan's Vintage says, I live 1,000 miles from the National and I'm spending 6 days there. I live a 15-minute train ride from Fanatics Fest, and there was zero chance I was going to go. I don't think he would have found what he wanted there. Makes sense. Mike Petty says the front row card show doubled the size of the Pasadena show last week, and it was a great assortment of modern, vintage, and Pokemon. I really enjoyed it. And the front row card show, I mean, these guys are, the guy who runs that seems to be doing a great job from what I can see from afar. Theo says, I thought the National added space for new dealers this year. They did, Theo. You are not wrong. I think they added 75 new tables or booths. John, 3D80s kid, says, every moment I've seen with the celebrity folks around cards felt more fake than the worst reality shows. So wasn't a fan of that. Mr. Minty says, Fanatics Fest is a conference dedicated to fandom, cards included. Well said. He says, the Fanatics Fest Card Museum was insane. Great. And, not to say that it wasn't great, but you go to the National, you go to all the auction houses, and you've got several card museums there, just to put that out there. Philly Joe said, I 2 times want to go to Fanatics Fest before the National. I love cards, not card shows. Hey, totally cool. And then Mr. Minty says the National is antiquated. Too many tables of pennants, VHS, pins, random stuff that the same dealers haven't sold in 10 years. It needs to be cleaned up. And Josh, we'll hear from you in a second, Josh. I take Josh's position. Listen, I don't mind walking past those tables. They don't have anything for me, but I don't really mind that they're there. I wouldn't mind seeing them kind of slowly leave due to attrition, but bigger for me is the Pokemon and the non-sport. It's the National Sports Collectors Convention. There's no word of Pokemon or TCG or gaming in there. Fanatics Fest is all about sports. So if Fanatics Fest can keep the Pokemon stuff out, I think that would be a good thing. But are they gonna? I don't know, because can they? Is it practical to do so as a sports collector who has no interest in Pokemon? I don't mind walking by those booths, but if there's ever a point at the National where there's more Pokemon than sports, I'll stop going. Josh, you were pretty riled up there. What were you thinking?
That's some of the best stuff at the show. And if they weren't selling that stuff, they wouldn't be there. So they're obviously selling it. So there's a demand for it. There's a demand for pennants. I've got a ton of them, but there's a demand for pennants. There's a demand for old VHS. There's demand for all that stuff. Otherwise, they would not have a top spot every year if they were not making any money.
I mean, the bobblehead guy, you see him when you walk in the main entrance in Chicago and you turn to the right, he's kind of like, I don't know, 100 yards down type of thing. And
Mike has been there since the beginning. He sells a ton of product. He sells a ton mail order during the year. It's, I think it's Touchdown Classics or whatever it's called. But he's got a ton of stuff. He sells a lot, and that's not the only show he does. So he makes it he's doing okay. He's not hurting.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Minty's comment that it needs to be cleaned up. I don't know if it needs to be. I don't know that I agree with that. Why does it need to be until attendance starts going down and they can't fill the vendor booths? Why does it need to be? Why? I'll tell you why. To serve the modern collector. And that's not a need. That's why people say that, to serve the modern collector who doesn't like the older stuff. Now, I don't like seeing cards in yellow top loaders in elastic bands in booths. I walk right by those booths too. But hey, if they're there doing business, I mean, ideally for me, I would like to see there be more items that I like. And I think that's what Mr. Minty is saying. He wants to see more items that he would like and that people he's talking to would like. Josh?
But that stuff is there. If his complaint is location, well, that's just then set up for 20 years and get a better location. But that stuff for the modern guy is there. You just got to look. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge show. You got to look.
It's a huge show. There's something for everybody. It is the National Sports Collectors Convention. It is not a sports expo sort of thing like Fanatics Fest is.
Jeremy, can I just jump in for a second here? Nobody spoke up for pins, okay? Pins have a place in this hobby too.
All and pins matter.
And then second of all, yellow top loaders, that's just the ultimate visual. As soon as Jeremy said yellow top loaders, my mind's eye saw that dealer table. Let's see, what do you got there? Pins?
This is my pin collection, you guys.
See, somebody had to speak up for the pins.
It's in a University of Manitoba binder, which tells you I've had this collection since I went to university, and I left there in like 1994. So but this is a one type of pin. I've never shown this, or I don't think I've ever talked about this on Sports Cards Live before, but I have a pin collection. I have these felt, and it is all boom Hard Rock Cafe pins. Why? Wow. Because I worked at a Hard Rock Cafe in 1990 and 91 in Sydney, Australia, right out of high school. And I got a bunch of pins working. I got the staff pin. I got 3 gold pins for like a kicking butt during a shift, and then we used to trade pins. You clip them to your apron and trade pins with other people who would come through. So I still to this day own my and I do have a couple valuable pins in here. I don't keep up with it. I haven't added a pin in 20 years, but I keep it. I keep my Hard Rock Cafe pin collection.
It's your flair. It's Jeremy's pieces of flair. Amazing, amazing.
It's my flair. Exactly.
I feel cyberbullied. I feel cyberbullied by Mr. Minty because 2 years ago in Chicago, I didn't buy any cards, but I bought like 7 pins and 2 pennants.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. There's something there for everybody. And listen, I think Mr. Minty is speaking on behalf of a large contingent of the hobby, and I think that's okay. Listen, everybody wants what they want, right? So it is what it is. We all have our different views. Clemente says Jeremy would work hard at Hard Rock. I was a busboy, guys. I was 18 years old working at the Hard Rock Cafe in Sydney, Australia as a busboy, and I worked my butt off. You bet I did. Mr. Minty, well played, Jay Lee. Christina says, Jeremy, you're going to get a pin from CGC at the National? Yeah, I will, especially because, I love Suze, and Suze is my friend, and she loves them. Yeah, for sure, I'll get a CGC pin at the National. Any Led Zeppelin? I mean, I've got a lot of pins in there. I don't look at them very often anymore, but I do. Skeppy says Jay Lee has pieces of flair. Clemente, Jeremy got yelled at for not enough flair. And he kissed pins, says Jacob Dahl. I do have a couple of like concert pins that I went to like In Excess Kick concert back in the day, a Midnight Oil concert in Sydney, Australia. I have some of those too, but anyway, there's that. Okay, guys, any final comments on Fanatics Fest? Chris, Ben, or Josh? Okay, let's move on to the other topic, Ben, that you were bringing in. This is one that I think a lot of people are, except Josh probably has no idea about this topic because he didn't know that collectors bought SGC, which is fine. It's okay, Josh. Okay.
I have no idea. I have my little hobby blinders on. That's it.
Well, here, your blinders would not have caught wind of this. Let me tell you, there was a new grading company that announced a new AI grading company, Josh, announced its presence like 2 weeks ago, maybe, called Zeagley. Zeagley.
You're making this up.
I am not. I kind of feel like I should be. I kind of feel like I might be, but I assure you, I am not. Now, maybe they were making it up, but I'm not making it up. Zeagley, and they announced they were gonna exhibit at Fanatics Fest, and they didn't. And they had I saw a mock-up of their label. It looked like a knockoff of PSA, and then I saw that they said they got a cease and desist from PSA, so they shut down all their socials, and they shut down even their they have a blowout thread, Josh, that they aren't doing it anymore on there. I think they kind of closed up their social accounts. Their website is basically just a picture of a bunch of baseball players wearing jerseys with the letter Z on them now. So Ben did some reporting on this. So Ben, what can you tell us about Zeagley AI grading?
Truthfully, Jeremy, I wish that there was a lot that I could tell you about it, but I talked to the person that is claiming to be the CEO for probably like almost 2 hours total across like a couple conversations. And I wish that I came away inspired or educated on what the process was going to be. And as you can probably intuit, they really didn't deliver very much stuff at all. And so, at Collect, we sit there and we try to pitch stories to each other, and we saw this pop up. We saw a press release for it, and we were like, new AI grading company, whatever. They're dime a dozen at this point. Everyone has some gimmick that they want to try to use. We really didn't give it much credence. Then they said that they got a cease and desist letter from PSA. So we started digging, and the too long didn't read version of this is, they were using Google Voice numbers, so we couldn't figure out, who was actually calling. I tried to set up a meeting at Fanatics Fest. They didn't show up. They texted me afterward. I probably of all the questions that I asked, "What's your name?" probably like 80 times over like these 2 hours, because I was just like, new grading company pops up. Who are you guys? Who are you?
Ben, you said 2 hours of conversation. Was this Zoom? Did you see faces on the phone? What was this?
So we initially asked for Zoom. So our initial conversation was they gave us a Google Voice number, said, let's set up a call. We asked, can you tell us who we're going to be talking to and their titles? They said no. They just gave us a general spokesperson named Ace, which obviously is like a stupid thing, but the funny thing about that is there is a PR person out in the collectible space, and their real name is Ace, and they are very, very nice to work with. Great person. Shouts out to the real Ace. We tried to do it over Zoom. They said no. They called me from like another Google Voice number, and I eventually told them, like, people just want to know who you are. You claim that you guys have this incredible background of, Google engineers, Amazon engineers, Meta engineers. Okay, like tell me who you guys are. Where'd you guys come from? And they pretty much refused at every step of the way. I even said, hey, I won't print your name. I'll protect your name, but let me look you up on LinkedIn and see where you worked. And they refused to do it. Eventually we found out, like I'm pretty sure I know who the person is at this point.
You want to share? Why don't you?
We didn't. So we didn't. They haven't like committed a crime or anything. So we didn't. We chose not to print their name. But I'll say that like blowout threads aren't terribly far off. You can look up where. You can go to they're based in Seattle. You can go to the Secretary of State website, look up a business search, see who the governor of the company is, when they were founded. Things started to get weird when they use like a third-party registering agent, which in a vacuum is not strange, but you get a name on the business license, the addresses didn't really go anywhere. The main address goes to like a third-party agent, the other address goes to a mailbox, like a post office in the middle of Seattle. And so didn't get any answers. Eventually started to find out that they're just like grossly exaggerating relationships. They said we have investments from DraftKings. I called DraftKings. No, they don't. DraftKings.
Well,
we never.
So Ben, I mean,
Mhm.
so they're liars. There's zero transparency. They're not even telling you their name, so you could go to LinkedIn, which is kind of common practice nowadays. So
Right.
it's a hoax. Like there is no Zeagley grading company. This is literally like John basketball card guy's underwater grading company from his April Fool's joke a few years ago. Like it sounds like it's just a big joke on the hobby. Is that kind of the bottom line right now, Ben?
I think so. I mean, like maybe there's a company in there somewhere, but I've heard that they were showing, they claim to show people demos at Fanatics Fest. I've heard that they weren't demos, they were just screenshots, and there's no real proof that any of this was actually happening. When they say we're going to be grading with AI, I asked, okay, what does that mean? Explain that to me. Like it's like the popular subreddit. Explain that to me like I'm 5. And they're like, well, our software just learns everything on the internet, and it's smarter than any human will ever be. And they had no relationship with DraftKings. We're not sure that they had like a great meeting with Fanatics Live.
Ben,
Eventually,
I'm gonna interrupt you because I almost don't want to give them any more of our time right now. This is just a nothing burger to me at this point. Can you just like really quickly just put a bow on this discussion? We'll go to some comments.
Yeah, so I will say that the important thing, and it's the reason that I wasted a ton of my time so that you guys don't have to. But I think the thing that we should learn from this is that when people come into this space, it's a very tight-knit community. You need to know who you're working with, what their backgrounds are. If they're claiming to have something that's going to revolutionize a space and they're not willing to tell you anything about it, you should seriously consider whether or not you should give these people your money, right?
Or your time.
And or your time. Unfortunately, I did that, guys, so you guys don't have to suffer. But it's one of those things that it got people riled up about what's possible in the hobby and what we should be looking for in like new grading companies, which I think is partially valid. But if you don't know anything about the people you're working with, please don't send them your money. Even if you think it's like a cup of coffee, buy the cup of coffee instead. That's what I think the main takeaway should be. Just be careful if people aren't willing to tell you who they are or what they can actually provide you.
All right. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate you. And listen, sincerely, thanks for doing that so that we don't have to. Although Dan's Vintage says that Mike at Junk Wax Hero sussed out this silly fake AI grading company. He goes on to say this Zeagley's AI grading company has been an ongoing scam artist. For years.
So I've talked to Mike. There was another one that was around on social media. I'm pretty sure they are different people.
Okay. All right. 3D 80s kid John says, "Are we sure this new grading company isn't just a Lamine James joke?" No, I don't think maybe we're not sure about that. So okay. And then okay, good. Now, one quick question for Chris from Chris. Dan's Vintage asked a question a little while ago now, 40 minutes ago, actually. He said, I have a question for Chris. Is Tony, who is Southern Collector, is his Josh Gibson Tolatero's private sale going into Card Ladder? And I would just say, well, Tony would have to bring it to you, Chris. Did Tony bring you that sale?
He did. As Mike Petty pointed out shortly after in the chat, Tony did subject himself to the private sale process, which is not a light process. You have to produce a lot of different things to get your sale added, and he did, and it's that way for a reason. And yeah, if you go into Card Ladder and you search sales history for Josh Gibson, that'll get you to it. And then you can scroll down to the notes section, and you can see that it was Tony, Southern Collector, who submitted it, and you can see the details that he submitted, which I believe is a cashier's check and DMs with the seller agreeing to price and stuff. We don't publish the documents themselves, but we do acknowledge that we review them and receive them. So you can log into Card Ladder and you can see that sale. And congrats to Tony. God, what an amazing card, and we appreciate him being willing to publish that sale.
Yeah, one of the great things about the private sale, well, no, I won't say one of the great things. I'll say one of the key factors about the private sale, the documented private sales on Card Ladder, is that the people who are utilizing those comps for their research into their own purchasing decisions, they can decide if they want to trust that, because the Card Ladder team is doing what they're doing. They have their process, and it is spelled out for you what they are doing. And I have to think some could still get through. Some could possibly get through. So then it's up to the individual who's looking at that data to say, hey, I know Tony. I trust Tony. Tony's someone that I personally, I would try. I trust Tony. So I just wanted to kind of mention that kind of briefly there. Okay. Dan says, awesome, Chris, such a great service you have. And Chris says, Tony is such a great guy, and I'm happy for him. Yeah, I mean, and Texas Rangers PC double declares that. So yeah, if it's a person in the hobby who is well-known and reputable, then those documented private transactions carry that much more weight, if not all the weight, really. So that's great. Okay, well, we're at the end of the planned topics, but Chris and Ben, stick around because we're going to go for 10, maybe 20 more minutes. Chris, welcome to the show, buddy. Did you bring any topic you want to introduce to us to talk about tonight? Because we've been part of all the existing stuff, but I want to give you an opportunity to introduce a brand new topic to close things out.
Yeah, I mean, I have a menu of them. So I have one that I selfishly am very interested in. I have another one that I would love to hear the vintage community's perspective on. I'll go with that one.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll go with that one. Just I don't know. I'm also curious. Like, this one isn't directly related to things I'm researching right now, but I'm just so curious because it's plaguing me a little bit in some of my hobby pursuits. So the gist of the question is, what do collectors do when the categories of and there's nothing wrong with these people, but like flippers and investors sort of start invading a niche in the hobby that you happen to collect in. So like, as an example, over the last 5 years, I've certainly seen some of the younger, more active social media guys start posting, tops 52 tops mantles on their pages and for sale type of thing, incoming and for sale. And that creates more competition for those cards. And especially when you have, savvy entrepreneurial operators in the industry who, they buy that card for the explicit intent of selling it for a little bit more. And they're going to hold on to it until they do in most cases. And it just makes it that much harder to get it. And so I just wonder, how do vintage collectors and all collectors, but I know that this audience has a very strong vintage collector base, and I just wonder how do collectors navigate that? So some of the options are, do you look elsewhere for a little while and just sort of say, okay, I would love a 52 tops mantle, but I'm going to cool off on that for a little while and go look at something else that maybe is less intense right now in terms of competition for the cards. Or do you just say, this is the new reality that I have to compete with more people? It's a sign of respect ultimately for the card and its place in the hobby that this new category of people is interested in it. This is the new market now, and this is what I have to deal with. And so, on the one hand, it makes it harder to get these cards, but on the other hand, it probably increases the value of the other similar cards that I own to it. So it's a mixed bag. Or do you just sit on the sidelines for a while and just say, I'm not going to move to something else, but I'm also not going to pursue this right now. I'm just going to wait and I'm just going to see what happens, or some other option. So there's the topic, Jeremy, is how do we deal with that?
I want to go to Josh Adams first on this one, because Josh plays in both areas, modern and vintage, and he's been, I think, impacted by the flipper effect on modern. So Josh, let's hear your thoughts to kick this one off after Chris.
Once a card enters the vortex, it is almost impossible to get it out. It is our job as collectors to remove those cards from the vortex. I have no problem spending a little more for a card if it means a flipper won't have it anymore, because I'm sitting on it. There's ones, I'm not going to mention anyone's name or any card right now, but there's one I'm like this close to pulling the trigger on because I just want it. And I'm sick of seeing it on this guy's feed every day and at every show. But to answer Chris's question, I think you either sit on the sidelines and, like someone said in the chat, they eventually go away and find something else to cannibalize him. Yeah, we wait them out. I agree with that. Or you just buy it. Just if you want the card, just buy it. And how much is your time worth? Are you going to wait 2 years to buy a card? No, just buy and get rid of it. Money's for spending. Use it. You can always buy more money. You can get more money. Maybe I'll get that card. So pay more now or pay more later.
Josh, I love when you say money's for spending. I'm always just waiting if that's your punchline.
That was for you. That was for you. All right, thanks.
I liked Lonely Basement's response right out of the gate. We wait them out, they disappear. Well, but then Josh said once it enters, and the vortex is the flipper's vortex. That's what Josh is talking about.
Yes. It's like the black hole of cards.
You said, like, once they enter the flipper's vortex, it's very hard to get them out. And then Lonely Basement says we wait them out, they will disappear. But I think they may be replaced by other flippers, right? And some of the best vintages, maybe some of the best cards for flippers, if they are able to buy right, they can then make their margins. So, Josh?
That mantle, that 52 mantle, by the way, has gone up so much in the past 5 years. It's insane. I bought a PSA 1 for $8,000 in like 2004. Anyway, but the 51, thank God they haven't gotten their hands on the 51 Bowman yet. And I hope I didn't tip them off, because that card is better than the 52 mantle, 52 tops. But that's besides the point.
Well, Rugs Capital says grifters. Chris C says cardboard carpetbaggers. And Jeremy says, I move on if I think the price is too high. Come back because they are always on my list. And listen, like, a lot of the vintage is a lot more available than the 90s inserts that flippers are really working on right now. That's their wheelhouse. That's their specialty right now, are rare 90s inserts and parallels and that. So that is a much scarcer product than 52 tops Mickey Mantles or whatever vintage is. So it's different, Dan's Vintage says there are flippers in the vintage community too. We feel like they can be great to access super rare stuff, but we have to avoid overpaying. I acknowledge their right to a margin if reasonable. I think that's a very practical approach to it from Dan. I feel the same way. I feel that flippers do a service. They go to one show on the West Coast, they find cards, they bring them to the East Coast to sell them, and they're bringing them to you. And now I don't have to pay to travel out there. So the margin they're making might actually be less than I would otherwise have to spend to get the card. Again, we are in a global marketplace now, so that may not apply a lot, but I kind of look at it like that. Ben, you want to just share your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really thoughtful question. It's sort of a little bit of a brain teaser here, but I don't play in vintage a ton, but one thing that I do appreciate about the vintage that I do own is that because it's so nuanced within each grade, I have found a lot of success just sort of like zigging when other people zagging. If there's a typical grade that, there's like a PSA 4 of something, if it's at a certain price because people are looking for centering, then I might try to find a different attribute that I value to try to find a little bit of value in there. And then honestly, and then this kind of ties back into the conversation that you guys had like 2 hours ago. Whenever one of the markets that I'm typically playing in gets oversaturated, I protect myself as the collector because there's like 10 different things that I'm interested in at one given time. Like the conversation earlier about, player collectors. So I am a player collector. I have a big Chipper Jones collection, and that's the collectible that I go to when I can't find other stuff. You know, if I can't buy other stuff, I'm like, what? I literally did it today. I was like, there's nothing on eBay that I'm super excited about. I'm gonna go buy 55 Chipper Jones cards for like $20 total. And so I try to insulate myself a little bit to be able to, if one market is just too hot for me right now, I can just collect something different, and I'm still excited about it, you know. But vintage is particularly difficult. I don't envy the folks that strictly collect vintage. As someone that owns a little bit of it, it is nerve-wracking and frustrating trying to get the copies that I want of specific cards on a regular basis. It is so frustrating. And speaking of the national convention, that's exactly what I use it for. My main objective for every national convention is I have like 4 or 5 cards that I take there, and I want to get very specific copies with very specific attributes in them. You know, that I know there's going to be a ton of them there, and I have all of this selection, and I can try to like weed my way through. And if I find them, I try to upgrade. I don't, I'll just wait another year.
Yeah, good. Yeah, makes sense to me. Chris, before we get your closing thoughts on this, because you introduced the topic, so you got a lot going on in your mind, we're going to go to a couple comments. And Texas PC says, yeah, flippers have a purpose. There's just too many right now. Lonely Basement says, to be fair, 100% of all dealers are flippers. This is interesting. I've been thinking about that for a long time, and I draw a line, and that line to me, to Lonely Basement, and it's not a line. It's not like I don't disagree, but I do think that a flipper is a certain type of dealer. And to me, the flipper is the dealer who is not paying rent at the card show. Like that's the flipper is the person who just walks around the card show with their black Zion box or whatever they're called, and they are flipping cards from vendor to vendor, where the dealers are paying rent, most likely paying their taxes. Not to say flippers don't pay taxes, but most likely paying taxes. And they're just I think a dealer is a more professional flipper. That's how I look at it. But I agree with Lonely Basement in practically speaking, all dealers buy cards to sell them for a profit. That is a flip. So he's right. But because the word flipper in our hobby has negative connotation, I try to take that. I try to exclude the professional dealer from that. A guy like Leighton Sheldon, for example, who's a professional dealer in vintage. Dan's Vintage says, tell Ben about own appeal, Jeremy. I don't know if you heard about that, Ben, but it's a term that Dan coined, which basically we talk about I appeal, own appeal, where the appeal is in owning the card. John says, the part that is obnoxious is when they beat you in REA and have it posted the next day on eBay for much higher. So I had made a note before I even saw John's comment there, where I was thinking about, there's always been flippers, first of all, and a lot of times they were the guys you'd see at the national, the vendors, a lot of them, and non-vendors who would be playing the auction house arbitrage game. You know, they'd be buying on one auction house to sell on another. Very clandestine. You don't know who they are because the auction house is repping them. And we still see that, I'm sure. But I think they've always been out there doing that. Texas Rangers PC says, yeah, true. Too many dealers out there too. And to that, I just kind of think to myself, like, I remember the moment I became a dealer. And it was simply because another dealer at the Sport Card Expo in Toronto said to me, hey, Jeremy, if you hang out at my booth so I can go hit the show floor, I'll let you have a showcase to put your cards in. I'm like, I had my traders with me. All right, sure. That's all it took. I've been setting up a card shows ever since. Collector first, dealer second. But when I'm dealing, the money is just going to more cards. So I don't necessarily think there's too many dealers. I just think that everybody has ramped up their hobby activities to help fund, a lot of people to help fund their collection. I'm okay with that personally. So Chris C says a flipper is a short-term day trader type, in my opinion. Me too. That's another way I like to look at it, Chris C, which is flippers are day traders and dealers are more long-term investors, let's say, to use the investor term, of course. Texas Rangers says, every time I get a card, you got to pry it from my dead hands. Love that. And Bob Boozle, please do 10,000 word think piece on Dan inventing own appeal. I'm not going to stop using Dan's own appeal. I think it's a great term. All right, Chris, back to you to put a bow on this, and we're going to wrap up this episode.
Yeah, sure. I'll go in two parts. The first part is that I agree too that the flippers have a place, but more importantly, Dan made a great point about that they can provide a really helpful service, which they can. Some of them are extremely talented at unearthing cards, and then Jeremy, to your point too, that they also just have a right to be there, and this is a market where the strongest dollar wins, and but as a collector who wants to pay lower prices rather than higher, I have a right to complain about it too. So I can acknowledge that they have a right to be there, and they can acknowledge that I have a right not to like it. But at the end of the day, we'll meet the market, and the market hopefully will sort it out. And hopefully it'll be a fair market and not a manipulated market. But let's not open up that can of worms. And then the second point is I'm completely of the same mind as Ben when he said Zag, because that's what I've had to do a few different times. When Michael Jordan cards became too expensive, first I learned the hard way that I bought a card at the peak and got killed on it. And then, but also, I zagged into a different category, and I started collecting an off-brand football player, and it actually had all sorts of unintended benefits. I learned about a whole new sector of cards and a whole new genre of collecting, and I suddenly had this whole different, new, heightened interest in watching football, and so that it had a lot of different advantages I could have never foreseen in the future. So I'm really with the idea of the Zag, that can certainly be something that, first of all, just scratches the collecting itch, but then second of all, can lead to learning things and discovering new stuff that you had no idea that even existed.
Right on. Good stuff. Josh Adams, any closing thoughts on that? Oh, and by the way, when we were talking about Zeagley earlier, I don't even think I gave Josh and Chris an opportunity to say anything about that. Take a moment if you'd like to, Josh, and any final thoughts on vintage and flipping.
It sounds like a J.J. Abrams viral movie promotion thing, like they did for I forget what it was called, but the one about the monster in New York. So about zagging, I do what Chris does. I have like 3 or 4 different focused PCs when stuff gets too high. If I can't find a Jordan card or a Frank Thomas card, I'll do 500 home run hitters, 500 goal scorers, stuff like that, or collect old photos of Chicago Stadium. So there's always something to spend your money on in this thing of ours, which is great.
Ron Perry says flippers are like the guy from Sesame Street trying to sell you a letter M he's got inside his trench coat. That's good. That's good. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this one up. Chat. You guys are the star of the show. Thank you so much for your ongoing comments, engagement, just for showing up here and hanging out with us on a Saturday night. Always appreciate all of you. I want to thank Josh Adams for filling in for Joe. I want to thank Joe Perot for being, so supportive and always being here with us basically every episode of Sports Cards Live 2.0, which began in November. But I want to thank you, Josh, for filling in. You're the emergency backup co-host, so thank you.
Love it. Thank you so much for having me. I always have a great time with you guys. So nice to meet you too, Ben.
Ben, thank you. Ben from Collect at CLLCT on all the socials, YouTube channel as well, and the website, cllct.com. Some of the best kind of reporting going on in the hobby right now. Even though I wasn't a big fan, Ben, of the headline when the cropped Wagner got sold, and it was like, is this like the end of the hobby sort of headline? I was like, come on, guys, that's a little much. But despite that, great job over at Collect, what you guys are doing. So thanks for that. And Chris Hoge always coming on and closing things out, bringing topics and wonderful insight. So thank you to all of you. Final comments from the chat, guys? Love to get. Chris C says thanks. Dan Vintage says great episode, folks. Fantastic guest. Thank you very much, Dan. Tony Conte says good night, Josh and friends. Texas Rangers, peace out to you. Mr. Minty says nice job for you, Josh. So does Dan. Eric Stefano, thank you so much for being here. Jeremy, not me, Jeremy in the chat. Thank you, Jeremy. Bob Boozle says, Newsler, Jeremy Lee gives media a compliment. Tony Conti, good night to you as well. Laura, thank you, Laura, who's always here in the chat. Love seeing you in the chat. Metro Booming, hello and good night to you. Guys, Chris, we're going to only do you here. These guys won't know what we're up to. Guys, thank you, everybody, once again. This episode of Sports Cards. Oh, by the way, hit the like button on your way out. Just hit it on your way out. This episode of Sports Cards Live on November the 20th. I'm looking at the time, 11:10 instead of the date. On June the 28th, 2025 is now over. And good night, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in and being a part of the Sports Cards Live community. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and most of all, keep collecting. More great content to come. Sports Cards is a lifestyle.